Good afternoon, everyone. It is August 27th, and we are at the Children, Seniors, and Family Committee, 1:30, and I am your chair, Sylvia Arenas. We are about to begin, and so in order for us to begin, we're going to have to do this thing called taking roll. If I can get the words out. Thank you.
Okay, Vice Chairperson Yung
Here.
and Chairperson Arenas.
I'm here too.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Wonderful. Okay, so we are going to move into our items, I'm sorry, for public comment. And these are items that we can hear that are pertinent to and under the purview of CSFC, but are not on the agenda. Is there anybody who is here to speak in public comment?
We have one request to speak online.
Okay, wonderful. We'll do 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay. One moment while we adjust the timer. In the meantime, our speaker is Parent. Parent, we are unmuting you. You will have 3 minutes to speak. The timer will begin when you begin speaking.
Yes, good afternoon to all of you. At the last Board of Supervisors meeting, it was mentioned that we've had 6 deaths in the last 2 years. And I've only heard of Baby Phoenix, Ellie Lorenzo, Baby Jackson, Jordan Walker, and Aurora Williams. That's 5. And I believe that's 3 years. So there's more deaths that are unaccounted for. And I heard that we've had 7 social workers who have either been fired or were forced to retire because of the death of Baby Jackson. And I don't think this is an indication that we have something wrong with our social workers. I think that it's an indication of failed leadership because, I mean, there's way too many people that were forced out. It's an indication that our leadership is not doing a good enough job. And I mean, 6 deaths, or sorry, yeah, 6 deaths in the last 2 years. I mean, we're only hearing about the deaths. We're not hearing about physical abuse that doesn't lead to death. We're not hearing about sexual abuse. We're not hearing about neglect. I mean, these are things that are probably happening way more than we think and are not being addressed by DFCS. I mean, my own kids are being sexually molested, and the person who's sex trafficking them, she's threatening to physically harm them. And I can't get DFCS to even talk to them to see what's going on. They won't do anything. They won't even respond to me by email. They won't talk to me. They won't do anything. And I think it's horrible what's going on in this county. I mean, if God forbid this person does end up killing them, I mean, what are they going to say? Our hearts are broken. We're devastated. And then they'll just move on. And I don't think this is right. And so I think that it's time that we replace Wendy Kinnear Rausch and Daniel Little, because we can't have people who listen meeting after meeting after meeting about sexual abuse, detailed sexual abuse, and they act like you didn't ever say anything. I mean, that's not what we expect from our leadership. We really don't. We shouldn't. So I really hope that we replace them. And thank you so much for your time.
That concludes public comment.
Thank you, and we are going to continue to move on, and this is item number 3. This is approving the consent calendar and changes to the committee. I'd like to see if my co-chair has any items to move to the consent.
Thank you, Chair. Have some thoughts here for item 6, which is the monthly report from DFCS relating to the Child Welfare Curve Action Plan and related reform efforts. I'm okay with that going consent unless I'm looking at the staff, anything significant or substantial additional information has been provided or made available since the presentation was provided at Tuesday's board meeting?
We're good with consent.
And there's been no new information? Okay. So I would move to make a motion to move item 6 to consent calendar. And for item 10, and I know DESJ is in the house today, this is really, I'm perfectly fine with this going consent as an appreciation to the staff for a fantastic year, a lot of great work underway, and I know that we have a big party this weekend that we're all getting ready for with Silicon Valley Pride, the parade, making sure that everybody in community is feeling welcome and celebrated there. So I have no questions for today. Every conversation has already been well, I won't say every, but with the interaction and engagement with DSJ, I thank you. And Dr. Annalie Garcia, I thank you for your strategic and visionary leadership in the transformational process that we are undergoing right now in DSJ. And I would just give an additional shout out to Office of Immigrant Relations. The support of Belong in the Bay has been phenomenal. And to the Office of LGBTQ Affairs, happy 10-year anniversary. And no surprise in this current landscape of political challenges to what we hold dear in terms of our values as a county and community, DSJ and the Office of LGBTQ Affairs is facing the moment and meeting the moment with joy, with love, and with courage. So thank you for leading the way into our language access unit. We've been putting y'all to work. Really want to just celebrate that in addition to providing the language accessibility function for so many community conversations and county events, leaning in to develop corrective action plans and improvements and auditing the language access contracts within social services, particularly in the eligibility determination department, making sure that all members of our community, regardless of the language they speak, are treated with dignity and respect and accessibility. So unless Chair, if I can go either way with item 10. So I'll just make a motion and see where the rest of the committee lands on that.
Wonderful. So currently, it is items 6 and 10 on consent. And I will actually add another item, which is item 8. This is receiving the semi-annual report from the Office of County Executive and the Office of the District Attorney relating to South County Youth Task Force Strategic Plan. And I'll include that in there. I do have some comments for item 6. I know that there is a survey that is outstanding for the Community Social Worker Pilot Program, which I understand hasn't been completed yet, and I look forward to seeing what those end results look like, and then continuing to learn so that we can have another maybe iteration of the pilot program. And then the other piece is I look forward to having an offline conversation on the high fidelity wraparound services. We have seen so far a really wonderful collaboration across multiple departments, and so I have to really honor that and make sure that I tell you, sometimes I do a lot of analysis on some of the gaps in services, but when there are some successes to share and to be overjoyed with, I want to do that as well. And so congratulations to all of the departments, and that's ranging from behavioral health to juvenile probation. So we've seen a lot more integration and intersection among those departments, and thank you so much for the work that you're doing there. Let's see, and then, of course, item 10. Thank you so much, Division of Equity and Social Justice, for continuing to stand strong, for not softening your message, for continuing to do some of this strategic priority setting and work that needs to get done, regardless of whether our federal government likes it or not. Because this is who Santa Clara County is, and we stand strong. We're also smart in the way that we deliver services, and so we have to make sure that we do some level of adjustments, but not to our values, maybe simply to semantics, right? And so thank you so much for all the work that you do. There's lots to celebrate, and I truly appreciate it. I'm sorry you won't be heard today, but you are heard, especially through our immigration convenings here and outside in our county. And as Supervisor Young has already stated, when there's things to celebrate, such as our diversity, our LGBTQ community comes into play quite a bit. And so there's so many different reasons that your wonderful work should be elevated. And of course, the language access services, let's not forget that, because it's really important for us to be able to stay connected to our community. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing. This allows you to have like another, I don't know, 1 to 2, 3 hours of I don't know, does that qualify for a break, James? I mean, we could put this in the motion.
I was going to say,
if
it
you
means they
like.
get to go back to work. Continue all that good work they're doing.
I think I'll put it in the motion. This is a mandatory break. All right. And so last but definitely not least is item 8, and this is the South County Youth Task Force. Now, I know that there is some existing tension between how we should carry out the work, but not the goal and how we're centering our youth. And so for that, I'm grateful. I look forward to continuing to understand that our systems work with one another. And this is really to interrupt the school to prison pipeline, to ensure that our youth have a true second opportunity. And so I know that you all believe in what we are doing and in our type of intervention, and I'm just grateful that we continue to work with one another. And so thank you so much. I can't speak for the district attorney if you get breaks or not, but this deserves a break as far as I'm concerned. So thank you so much for all the wonderful work that is there, to all who are here and have something to do with our South County Youth Task Force. I unfortunately had to miss yesterday's because we were celebrating our Women's Equality Day, which I know that our folks from Office of Women's Policy had a lot to do with it. But it's not because it's not a priority. We also had to celebrate that. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing. And so if we can add item number 8, and then we can get a vote to get that approved.
Before we move on to the vote, we do
Oh,
have
yes.
one request to
Thank
speak
you so
online.
much for reminding me. We'll go ahead and keep that at 2 minutes.
2 minutes?
Mhm.
Okay. Our speaker is Parent. Parent, you'll have 2 minutes, and the timer will begin when you begin speaking.
Yes, I'd like to speak to item number 8. I think that what James Williams proposed and what Supervisor Arenas pushed for, in that we remove management of the South County Youth Task Force from the District Attorney's Office, I think that's the right thing to do, in addition to the Child Advocacy Center. I just don't think that DA Jeff Rosen is the right, is the right person to lead these efforts to protect children and to put them on the right course, because he's helping to cover up the sexual abuse of my own kids. I told him that my ex-wife was letting a man rape my son beginning when he was 13, that there had been unnecessary bathing with the children, and also there had been sexual contact between 2 of the children. And I thought that for sure he was going to do something to help protect my kids. And several months later, what did he do? He filed charges against me in an attempt to discredit me and conceal this sexual abuse. So given he's doing these types of things, and also he's connected to the Wexner Foundation, I don't think that he's the right person to be doing this kind of work for children. He's not a good person, and he's done this to other children. I've spoken to other parents who report the same kind of treatment from Jeff Rosen, and I think that Supervisor Arenas, what she said when we had that meeting about that, I think that was spot on. and I think that we should push ahead and take control away from Jeff Rosen. Thank you so much for your time.
And that concludes public comment.
Thank you, and I just want to say that the public can be assured that our county takes all allegations of child abuse and neglect seriously, and that includes rapid and cross-agency responses to such allegations by the Department of Family and Children's Services and local law enforcement and the Children's Advocacy Center, including the district attorney. And the reporting line for abuse in this county, abuse and neglect, is 833-722-5437. Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and Camille.
With a motion by Yung, seconded by Arenas. Vice Chairperson Yung
Yes.
and Chairperson Arenas.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Wonderful. Okay, so I know half of the room is leaving. I'm going to tell you it's going to get cold in just a minute. All right, so we're going to keep moving, and this is item 4. This is on the regular agenda for those of you who continue to stay with us here and online. And this is receiving the report from the Department of Family and Children's Services relating to foster care recruitment. I'm going to assume, Wendy, you're going to share with us?
I will start this off. Good afternoon, Supervisor Reines and Supervisor Young. Wendy Kinnear-Rausch, Director for Department of Family and Children's Services. And you are correct, this was an item that was an ask back by the Board of Supervisors to return to children seniors for us to highlight the visibility on our foster care recruitment, specifically ISFC+. I'm going to invite down to the table our partners from our our foster family agencies, as well as our leader in our CAPFA Kinship Adoptive Foster Parent Association. As they make their way down to the table, I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. While they are coming to the table, this really is an opportunity for us to hear directly from our partnership, from our FFAs, as well as from Denise Marchou, leading our CAPFA organization, on how we are partnering around our most robust services for ISFC+, as well as the need for caregivers to make this visibility. So this will really be, I will really be turning it over to them, allowing them to introduce themselves and kind of walk us through so that you can hear directly from them, as well as ask any questions directly. So with that, as they have made themselves comfortable, I will first turn it over, Jennifer, if you want to kick us off.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jennifer Greer, Senior Chief Clinical Officer for Rebecca Children's Services. I oversee our foster care and adoptions programs as well as a cadre of behavioral health services. It's a pleasure to see you all this afternoon and to share with you what it is to be a provider of Intensive Services Foster Care Plus, which is an innovative program here for Santa Clara County. And I look forward to hearing with all of my colleagues on each of our pieces of this presentation today. ISFC Plus, as you may be familiar, is the highest level of foster care that we offer in this county. We have basic levels of care, including ISFC, which is the highest level of what we call regular foster care. And then we have ISFC Plus foster care, which is very similar to STRTP in that we have innovatively worked with the state in order to bring this program on board, and it is the equivalent of STRTP, but in a home-based environment, trying to provide the most normal set of environmental factors as we can for youth of these particular high-level needs. And so we have 3 providers here today with us, including Denise. So if you'd like to introduce yourself. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Denise Marchou. I'm the Executive Director for CAFPA, which is the Kinship Adoptive Foster Parent Association. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this. I think it's important. We have over 500 members, which is almost 2,000 children that we represent. And we're just looking forward to being partners with this, helping with recruitment, and letting everyone know the services that we can provide and support we can give to our families. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Michelle Goodwin. I'm a clinical director with Pacific Clinics, and I oversee our foster care and adoption services and integrated behavioral health services within that program here in Santa Clara County, as well as a couple other counties. As Jennifer mentioned, ISFC Plus is an innovative way to provide high-level intensive support to youth in a family home setting with a full-time parent. So we have been very successful in seeing great outcomes with these youth when they have a single parent or a parent, at least one in the household who's full-time parenting. What that requires often is support with housing. At least half of our ISFC Plus professional parents, which we sometimes call them, are provided supported housing in combination with the provider agencies and the county. That allows a parent to afford to have the room and space available in a county where housing is very expensive, and they can focus full-time on parenting. So Santa Clara County, DFCS, has secured over about $2 million in one-time funding from CDSS to support the development of subsidized housing for our ISFC Plus providers, which is fantastic. It really enables us to support caregivers who are willing and able to do the work. We do have 2 units of those subsidized housing scheduled to come online in partnership with Pacific Clinics and DFCS by January 2027. And there's a couple other units in pre-development phase that the county is working on. Despite these efforts, the affordability in Santa Clara County for housing does impact our ability to recruit and retain parents at the level that we need. So we know that it's working. We know that we have a certain interest from people who are willing and able to do the work, but the affordability often gets in the way.
Good afternoon. Is this on? There we go. Good afternoon, supervisors, and thank you again for the opportunity to participate in this discussion today. My name is Matt Kamen. I'm a regional executive director with Seneca, overseeing all of the services we provide children, youth, and families in Santa Clara County. In addition to what my colleagues have shared already, an additional thing that I'd like to highlight about the ISFC Plus program is the close partnership with our Behavioral Health Services Department in providing mental health services to children in these homes. I think all of our colleagues would agree that there is a uniqueness in that the mental health services provided in these foster homes are really embedded into every aspect of this particular service and this particular model. This means that our organizations have staff available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to provide services to children in the place and in the moment when those services are necessary. They, in doing that, are also modeling for our parents, providing psychoeducation to the parents who are providing the parenting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and just investing in further growth in those parents to work with some of the youth in our community that have some of the most complex needs. I also want to share, Seneca, in addition to providing this particular program, provides a variety of other community-based services and residential services in the county. And so in a conversation today about the future of this program and investment, one thing that I do want to share with everybody is that Seneca has actually made the decision to wind down our ISFC Plus programs statewide over this coming fiscal year, with the transition expected to be completed by July 2027. This is really a decision reflecting a combination of significant changes in California's child welfare system and some growing financial challenges associated with operating foster family agency services generally. But want to reassure folks, our highest priority through this transition really is minimizing disruption for children, youth, families, and caregivers. We are in close communication with DFCS and with our partners at Pacific Clinics to determine if there is interest to help support any caregivers who may want to continue providing this level of service with another organization, to really make sure that the community still is getting its needs met, and to preserve the expertise and experience that our four incredible caregivers who have been with Seneca, some of them longer than the program has existed, to ensure that the incredible value that they bring to our community can sustain as well. So.
As part of our presentation and what we thought might be very helpful for all of you to hear, we wanted to include, a description of what it is to be an ISFC Plus provider or a caregiver in this community. So our caregivers collectively have several months of training and expertise behind them. There's a minimum requirement of 40 hours of training per parent, and this is on top of all of the additional trainings that they've had across the span of time. Many of our caregivers have experience providing services, either in this space as paraprofessionals providing rehabilitative services, perhaps have worked in former group homes and are familiar with youth of this caliber and what their needs are, or have been foster parents with us for quite some time and really honed their parenting skills or knowledge of system practices and partnerships, and are able to really support those higher level needs youth in their own home. One of the ways we thought it might be helpful for you all to have a really good picture of what ISFC Plus is to talk about what a caregiver or one of our caregivers and one of our youth and how they have paired up, and how this looks tremendously different than regular foster care, looks very different than STRTP, and looks very different than outpatient services. It's really a culmination of all of those variables. The caregiver, well, let me first begin with the youth. The youth that we'd like to paint a profile for is approximately 12 years old. She has been a survivor since birth. She has experienced tremendous neglect, alleged sexual abuse. She has witnessed the substance use and abuse of her parents. Her alleged father disappeared very early on in her young history, as did her mother, and this is all before she was able to attend kindergarten. We have worked with her since age 5, so we have quite a bit of history with her, and she is a resilient child. She is paired with one of our ISFC Plus caregivers and has been there for quite some time. Our caregiver, Erica, is an amazing woman. She has a history of having been a former group home staff member. She's been a foster parent to a youth with more minimal needs for years, and we've been able to support her in this growth into the ISFC Plus space. Erica really believes and supports this youth in ways that are incredible. She is currently participating in additional training that is surrounded with the information associated with attachment and bonding. She has changed her parenting style to be specifically tailored to the needs of this youth. We believe that this youth's early traumas have really guided the development of her brain in a way in which it makes it very unique and very different than other same-aged peers. This youth has experienced a lot of psychiatric care in her life. We've tried a variety of meds, and none of that has worked. But what is currently working is all of the different therapies, such as the private pay therapist that Erica has hired that provides equine therapy. We're beginning neurobiofeedback therapy, because this is what it takes to uniquely tailor services and supports to youth of this caliber who have experienced such significant traumas. As parents, I know that some of you are. Please imagine what it is like to bare your soul to all of your service providers and say, this is not working in my home. I need something new and different. To explore what those new and different things are, to hear from other professionals, you have to parent differently. This child's brain is wired differently. And it sounds very simple to do, as all loving parents would, of, I hear you, I'll do it differently. But know in the moment when you're parenting that child and their intense tantrums and intense needs, that you have to stop and think, I know what I would be naturally inclined to do, but let me stop myself and react and behave and use certain language in a different way and see this child's tantrums, and behaviors as needs for help and better support in her specific way. It's really an incredible feat. All of us we know if we have multiple children that each require a little different approach, and this is that on steroids. This is her taking all of her professional skills, taking the feedback of so many professionals that have committed to sitting in meetings and setting professional egos aside to say we are working one plan in one voice to support you and this child so that we see the stabilization and the safety that is deserved for this child and family. Erica has also partnered greatly with the schools and with each teacher, knowing that they also too need to have that shared language and shared ability to communicate this so that school is a place in which this child feels safe and is able to benefit from her education and see her peer relationships blossom. Because ultimately, Erica's greatest job is to create space, not just for all of the professional services that are hours and hours each week, but to create that space for normalcy, to create that space for that little girl to go outside and play, to ride her bike, to play with the family dog, and to have a childhood that she can look back on and think, wow, I think this is when things really began to change for the better. This is when things kind of felt good. So that is the job of an ISFC Plus parent, and how and what supports they need, how they have to avail themselves to being open to such intensive support, because as normal parents, we would all be like, wow, this is really too much, I can't do this. And she's in there saying, how can I do it? Help me do it, and saying yes. So we want to praise Erica for those and give you guys kind of a picture of what that means in terms of parenting. In terms of rates of effectiveness, we know that half of our current caregivers have, as I said, plenty of experience. But 26 youth have been served in fiscal year 25 to 26. 85% of our youth served have increased their school participation and improved healthy coping skills. 90% of our youth have successfully transitioned home to home-based settings that are less restrictive. We have one youth that was able to leave our ISFC Plus program who had significant substance use history, needed not only behavioral health services, but substance abuse treatment, was able to take advantage of all of these opportunities, transition to his grandmother's home, and stay connected to the ISFC Plus caregiver. We recently got the opportunity to see a photo of this ISFC Plus caregiver and this former youth, who's now an adult, in this really wonderful supportive relationship, and know that that connection endures, which is all what we need, is that connection to community, to feel supported and safe and feel like we have a path to hope and well-being.
Thank you. What a great story. Yay, Erica. Recruitment. Recruitment looks like everything. We try everything. It isn't easy to find a person, especially who is willing and capable at this level. We are here to support, we are here to train, we're here to offer all the resources possible. But to find those people who get beyond the dream of, oh, I should do that, I would love to do that, that's a nice thing to do, and actually commit to the work that's required just to get through the pre-approval process. It is stringent, and it should be stringent, and it takes some time, and it takes a lot of support. The reason why I highlight this is because we can't do it alone. We need all of the community and all of the community leaders to understand the need of foster care at every level, certainly ISFC Plus level, because we know that that's working, and we know that it's a challenge, and we know we need certain people for that. But we also need caregivers at every level. These ISFC Plus higher level foster care placements are intended to be intensive and short-term, and to help a youth regulate and be able to acclimate to a home setting and permanency. So we need the places for them to go next when it's time for them to settle into a lower level foster home, or ideally return to family. We can't do recruitment by ourselves. We have great partnerships between the providers. We have great partnership with the county, DFCS, and the recruiters there. We get as creative as we can. We go to all the events that we can. We canvas, we hand out flyers, we make T-shirts. We make QR codes on everything that we can. We are more and more utilizing social media and the internet at large as it changes very quickly. We have marketing departments that are trying to figure out, like, how do we utilize AI and make sure that when somebody asks Claude about foster care, that it's pulling all the right information from the right places and giving good answers. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of support. So please, anything that you can do. There is a motto, I guess we have, a saying that we say across this field, that recruitment is everyone's business, or recruitment is everyone's responsibility, and I mean everyone. If you have concern about how DFCS, foster family agencies, foster parents are doing, if you have concern about how foster youth are thriving or not thriving in the system, then ask yourself, am I or anyone I know interested in becoming a resource parent? And if you or anyone you know is interested, please give us a call. And there is a phone number that, one phone number to the county that I have here somewhere. Who knows it? That can get any one of our FFAs as well.
Looks like it's 299
And
kids.
that is, 408 299 kids.
Yeah.
It's the number we all know. Yes. Call and ask. We're here to help.
I
And
think it's your turn, Jennifer.
did we cover everything?
You did
Except
that.
for the
Okay.
ask.
Okay. We're back on 6. Did that? That's Michelle. I know.
That's still me?
I know that. That's you.
I didn't cover all of that?
You might have.
Oh, yes. So the complexity of recruiting and retaining. As I mentioned, finding those caregivers that are willing and able to provide the high level of care for ISFC+. There are stringent requirements, a lot of training. We do need someone with not having other outside employment, at least one adult in the household who can full-time parent. They need the physical space, at least 2 bedrooms, and no other youth in the home. So at least 2 bedrooms, no other youth in the home, ideally 2 bathrooms as well. And then we also have to prepare for regular turnover. We do have some resource parents who have been doing ISFC plus caregiving for many years, but then there are those who only have a certain amount of time that they can really commit to that and will move on. There are also those who make a good connection and become the permanent placement for the youth that they've cared for in ISFC plus, so they naturally matriculate out as well to build that permanent relationship with that youth. We have to have very flexible, well-educated, well-skilled staff to support these families as well. You can imagine even those of us who have a lot of experience working with youth with complex trauma and the behaviors that go along with that sometimes, there's the added delicacy of supporting a caregiver, because until you've done that, you don't really know what it's like. So the respect and the partnership and the nuances of that, finding the right staff and retaining the right staff is important as well. We have, as a system, taken feedback to understand various barriers for recruitment. We've taken feedback from the Juvenile Justice Commission, Civil Grand Jury, interagency leadership meetings. We've engaged stakeholders, of course, DFCS, behavioral health, probation, all of our caregivers, anyone who's willing to give us feedback, and they often are more than willing, and that's always very helpful, and also the various foster family agency providers. And this is just an additional call to action for more support.
My mic on? Okay, thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank Jennifer for bringing a face and a voice for that child, It's so important that we remember that, that these children exist. They have names, they have trauma, but they're real living children in homes and trying to survive. And so I really, really appreciate that. CAFA is a support and advocacy group, as I said before. And one of the things that we do, we kind of come from a different direction than the other partners here. We usually don't recruit, but we're always recruiting. We are typically out in different events or different venues talking about the organization, talking about the system, and we're always looking for families. I'm on my third generation of high school kids, and this is a tough job. These families that take on these older youth, they need a lot of support. And what we're able to bring them is kind of the normalcy to it. I think Jennifer talked a little bit about that, having a normal life. And we can give them events with other kids. We can give them any items that they possibly could want, a little extra, another pair of shoes or a new backpack or things like that, that just kind of brings a normal life, what you would ask a teenager if they wanted. And that's what we can bring to these children. We have lots of families. Again, we have over 500 members that we are willing to put the word out again and try to get some of these families that have been foster parents for a long time or adoptive parents. We have kinship families that never thought they'd be part of a system, but they've raised their children or their nieces or grandchildren and are thinking, wait a minute, you know, this is really a good service. I might be able to do this. So in partnership, I'm hoping that that's one of the directions that we can go with our families. And again, we do outside events, which I love because the kids can come and connect to other children that are possibly going through the same trauma or the same circumstances, the same housing. They're not with their biological family, but they're with a family and are in a home. And some of these children just need somebody else other than who's at school where they usually don't like to talk about it. Here they can talk about it freely. They can, you know, make friendships with other children. We have one of my staff, Christine, is wonderful with that. She's got teenage kids, and she has a group that meets all through the summer at Roosevelt Park, and they go roller skating, and while the parents are able to connect and talk, the kids are bonding with each other and making, hopefully, lifetime friends. So that's one of the things we can do. I'm thrilled to be part of this team. I think we can really help with recruitment and hopefully retention efforts also. Thank you.
If I could, just on the heels of your comments, Denise, and yours as well, Michelle, to briefly just put a finer point on the other side of recruitment, which you just mentioned is retention. Seneca's ISFC Plus program has been small but mighty with the caregivers that we have been working with for many, many years at this point. And I think we've all, I'm sure, learned a lot about what is important for retention. I know this committee and this board has grappled with some of the, I think, clear things that come up related to recruitment and retention in this county relative to things like high cost of living. And so really appreciate the efforts that DFCS has made and this board has supported around housing support, around cost of living adjustments for the people that are giving their lives to this work. I just also wanted to name a couple of other things that I think are really key related to this. I think a big piece of it is respecting the nature of what our caregivers are doing to you know, think about what that means to be Erica in your story, and the importance of listening to our caregivers' unique input about the course of treatment, fitness in a home, all of those things. And I think related to that too, just to mention something that I said earlier, this particular work service program does not exist in a vacuum. It exists as a part of an incredibly important continuum of services to ensure that when children have made progress, they can transition to a lower level of care in a family-based home, to ensure that when children need a different approach to treatment, there are different levels of care that may not look like family-based care in order for additional stabilization or treatment to happen. And having that smooth continuum available in the right capacity, in the right places, and the right community-based supports is critical to making sure that this particular program functions well and that these caregivers can continue to make the commitments that they make to our children. And so I just want to name that too, that an investment in ISFC Plus is also an investment in the continuum of services that all of our providers are creating and maintaining to ensure that we're providing high quality, individualized care for our children and families.
We can wrap up with some asks, or did you have another? I'm looking at you because I don't want to wrap up if we're not done. Okay. I was just going to summarize some asks for the board. Like I mentioned before, recruitment is everyone's responsibility, and we would welcome any partnership to help actively message and recruit for all levels of care, in specifically ISFC Plus. We have an ask for support for media outreach and identifying any other partners that can be part of this effort. Would be helpful to have a plan to explore a media campaign with different social media platforms and ads. However, whatever process is most effective in reaching more families and individuals and educating the community on not only the need, but the initial steps to get started. And any advocacy to increase the statewide foster care rates. There is a current shift going on to a tiered rate system of care. We don't know yet exactly what that's going to look like. CDSS hasn't released the final plan. It's, in my opinion, it's not looking great so far. But we are continually concerned about being able to stay in business to retain foster parents at various levels due to the low rates of foster care and the high cost of living. And I think that's it for me.
So I think with that, Supervisor Arenas, any questions you might have for the panel and where you'd like to take this next?
Thank you so much. Well, I'll take it to Camille to see who we have on board to provide public comment first.
There are no requests to speak.
Okay, so I will go ahead and begin with a great level of gratitude to all of you for the work that you're doing. I think it's amazing. Thank you for, it's amazing work, one, and thank you for putting this profile and a face to a story, if you will, because it really personalizes the experience of a little girl who's now 12, I think you said, right? And came into our system pretty early on. And so I think that's part of the, to be honest with you, you asked for some support. And I think that's part of what we need to do is really personalize who our foster care kiddos are. And there are kiddos that our kids play with at school. That's who they are. They're everyday kiddos. They don't look any different than you and I. Although I will say that there is a level of recognition that in our system, they kind of look more like me. For many reasons, I think we need to diversify the way that we're pulling folks in. But before I go into that, I just wanted to ask a couple of questions because I think there's so much potential with what you were hoping to do in terms of a media campaign plan and advocacy to increase the foster care rates. And I'm going to ask our county executive to see what role we're playing, if any, in making some of that happen.
Sure, I would look to our SSA director and DFCS director to talk about the work that we do in that regard.
Thank you, James, and thank you, Supervisor Arenas. So as was highlighted by our partners, we are in active partnership around those media campaigns. We make sure any family-friendly events, we are there. I know you mentioned making sure those recruiting, we are recruiting those that look like the children we serve. I can tell you from DFCS, as well as our recruiters from our foster family agencies, we are very mindful of culture and language and have all of our materials in both Spanish and Vietnamese and actively recruit that way and actively take a look at events within community, because as you've heard me speak before, making sure we can keep kids in their communities where they have removed from, staying in their home schools is our top priority, is a mandate of what we need to do. So we are actively, as you heard from Michelle Goodwin, have QR codes, have t-shirts, are actively promoting that material, are taking a look at any platforms necessary. We are also partnering with our two schools, Franklin McKinley and Gilroy Unified School District, doing some partnership with them. I have meetings with the superintendents to ask for their partnership in talking to families, because those are two communities and zip codes that we want to make sure we're recruiting caregivers from. So we're actively partnering with them. And then we have some active partnerships with our community colleges to take a look at active partnership with them as well. I think the ask that we're asking for is to have this on the forefront for all of our Board of Supervisors as well, and any events you are going to make it at the forefront for this call to action in communities when you make asks. It's not something we normally think of, so how do we make it a regular ask in what we do, making sure we can make sure you have access to our QR codes and all of that ask and all of our media information so that you can help support us in that ask as well.
Wonderful. I know this is very unique kind of care. It's not your regular foster care. Although if you recruit for regular just foster care, this is a plus, right, above it, because it requires some additional training, but also living environment. You said at least 2 rooms in the home, and then no other youth living there. Is that a state limitation, or is that a delivery preference?
So that specific request has been the model that we have determined is necessary in order to, as you heard the story that Jennifer presented, to really make sure that child in that home is given every opportunity. So that's been a program requirement. However, one of the things we may have not made clear in this presentation is in order to get to this higher level of care, most of those that are doing that have been caregivers not at this high level. So increasing our base and increasing that ask around foster care is really important, because that's typically where most of our caregivers have come from. They were foster parents, and then they said, hey, I think I could serve a child with higher needs, and so, okay, I'll opt in. So increasing that overall base is really important.
I thought so too, because this is quite a ask for somebody to come in and do ISFC. I think I got that right. Plus, right off the bat, and we need to first create a baseline of training and experience and just acclimation to what it is to be a foster parent to begin with, right? And foster parents could be relative caregivers. Many of them have been, and so they could be one and the same. What I'm wondering is if we could keep continuing to evaluate that the no other child or youth in the home, because if we wanted to recruit Latinos or brown and black families, there is many times an additional child in the home, and a lot of the times there is value in having somebody be a homemaker, whether it's the dad or the mom, right? Typically, well, it's the mom. And if we really need to recruit people who look like the kids who are in the system, then I think we also have to be responsive to what those needs are. And I don't know that you're going to capture so many folks at that tail end, because one, Latinos are living 2 years less than their counterparts. And then we have seen that the majority of the Latinos that are in this county are 25 and under, right? And so there's a very, very slim category to pick from. Although what we do have is an older population, right? And they're aging in place and they're here. And so I think that there's a huge advantage to figuring if indeed you continue to have the no youth in the home, that those folks who might be, right kind of in the middle of AARP is about to recruit them, but they're not yet, completely, they're still independent and still are able to participate in a very meaningful way. I think that there's an opportunity in a lot of the our commissions that serve our seniors to have some of those be our partners, as well as any of the cities that have commissions that are the same, because those are folks who are already working with that population. And if there's any folks who might be in the PTA, and there's the countywide PTA. There's that council that has all of the PTAs gathered, and lastly, and let me just go back to the Latino. I think what we need to figure out is what do Latino families, or what are they willing to, how are they willing to serve in this capacity? Are they willing to serve as foster care parents initially, not the ISFC plus? Because that might be too demanding or not possible because they still have children in their home. And if that's the case, then we are always going to encounter a lack of involvement as much as we try. I like your T-shirts, but that may not, it just may not be a selling point for them. So we have to figure out what the selling point is for the Latino community, for the Black and Brown community. And it could be that there's value in having a homemaker or a parent stay at home to care for children, right? This is something that most families actually value, not just Latinos. And it could be an opportunity to provide that for families in this valley, in which it's not necessarily possible. A lot of the Latinos who can't afford to be here have already exited and are probably in the process of continuing to exit, and their schools are getting smaller, right? So I just think if you can make a level of analysis and assessment in terms of what do we know about Latino families and Black and Brown families, and what do they value, what is something that would be engaging for them, and maybe it's the piece to the puzzle. I'm not saying that I have any of the answers. You've been very adamant and consistent in your feat to gather more folks in. I'm just wondering, maybe at the lower level, you get them at the foster care, just like you were saying, and then that relieves some of those foster care parents to maybe step up in a very different way. So anyways, and then the LGBTQ community, because we know the risk that community, that youth have in the streets for homelessness, for abuse, and I think that there's a lot of clubs and groups that are supportive of the LGBT community, and there could be a very specific kind of engagement with them to serve that population that may want to see themselves in the foster parents that they receive, right? So that was just my I was thinking about how can we get more Latinos into the system, because at this point, what I was wondering is how many children and youth are waiting for an ISFC plus home?
Well, I can tell you that the numbers of youth that are at our transitional residential shelter care facilities here in county, we are typically full with 18 youth, 6 in each of those 3 sites. And most of those youth qualify for a higher level of care, meaning they could go to a short-term residential treatment program. But as I've said before this board before, they want to stay here in county. So our efforts to have them go to an ESTRTP with Seneca, and as you heard the other day, we've launched one, and we'll have the second opening later. Many of them want a home-based setting and would like to go to our ISFC Plus providers. So the wait list typically of those that qualify is usually between 12 and 18.
I was going to ask that next, so thank you so much for giving that information ahead of time. And I visited that home. That's a beautiful, beautiful home. It is very thoughtful and in the way that the environment receives our kiddos, but that is like one kiddo at a time, right? Or two kiddos at a time. Sorry, thank you, two. And I don't know how long the actual stay is for the STRTPs, and for the ISFC foster homes, it's based on however long that child continues to be in the system, right? And so what is the average commitment from IFC Plus parents?
So we ask each of our parents to know that when they have a new child come into their home, that it's a 6-month commitment. It does come with a no eject, no reject aspect of care. Obviously, there are situations in which safety must be addressed and changes may be made from that direction, or other clinical changes, or family is coming forward. They're not bound to that home for that particular time, but we do anticipate it being at least 6 months. And then with the largest opportunity that is awaiting us is permanency, knowing that we really need to put additional resources behind the permanent connection, whether that is with their current ISFC Plus caregivers, because I think we've probably all had caregivers say, I've invested all of this energy into helping this child stabilize, and we're just going to step down into the regular foster care world. So the need for recruitment regenerates itself. I think that was highlighted amongst my peers.
Yeah.
But we do anticipate it being a minimum of 6 months, if not 12.
Got it.
And I could
Yes, please.
add, just, if it's of interest, I agree. Looking at whatever program adjustments we might make to attract the right people through recruitment is always definitely something that is welcome. I will say that the willingness is there in our communities of color. Every single resource, every single ISFC Plus caregiver that we have in my organization right now is a person of color.
Wonderful. I love that. I was just having a conversation with our Office of Supportive Housing, and I was asking them to put a profile together of who our unhoused community is, so that way when we talk about our unhoused, it's just not this unhoused community and the folks that people tend to see in the streets and encounter when they're wherever they are, taking a hike or downtown San Jose, because I think that makes them real folks, right, with real journeys and struggles and a story behind them. And I think you're going in the right direction as well. I believe, because from what I've seen, the campaigns on TV and on social media, it's a lot more important for us to connect personally with those kiddos that are there. And I wonder if there's an opportunity for us to be supportive of a real campaign that isn't just on the backs of, whenever you have extra time, and then remember to wear two days out of the 5 weekdays, you got to wear the T-shirt. It has to be really strategic. It has to be a little more than that. And so I'll turn to our county executive to figure out, how do we, because ISFC Plus is expensive, and because we know that there is a need, and because kids are waiting in the pipeline for such a long time, how can we facilitate a campaign, an actual plan that can elevate our foster care network, and at least get people started in terms of thinking about it, because it's not going to be immediate, right?
Yeah, it definitely isn't immediate, and as you heard, it's continuous, because folks continue to move as placements occur and there's permanency or other things, move then out of availability for taking another kid into ISFC Plus. you know, I think that we can continue not only the current investments that we're making in outreach, but, you know, look to see how we can partner more perhaps with school districts and others, because I think the most natural, relevant community are folks in our community who already have connection with and themselves are invested in families and youth. You know, I personally think investments in very, very, very broad brush, you know, generalized outreach are probably not as effective when you're talking about folks who really need to make a deep type of investment. And, you know, I wonder, not knowing a lot of the details about how the current campaigns are designed, I've heard, you know, there's social media use and other things, but one of the things that's really become very powerful in, you know, recent years is the ability to really micro-market and target. And so I'm not sure to what extent the current generalized social media or generalized outreach is trying to tap into the very, very specific types of information that, for better or for worse, that that these companies have acquired about each of us.
Yep.
You know, based on our own purchases, based on our own internet habits, based on our own travels around the community, the wealth of information that is available for acquisition or utilization through those commercial systems now for very, very specific micro-targeting, which I know is used extensively in the political campaign space. I think identifying those specific types of markers that are commonalities among the current set of folks who, you know, who have stepped forward to either be ISFC Plus or regular ISFC providers would probably allow more in-depth targeting so that we're reaching an actual target population that is likely to be more interested in that engagement. Because I think a lot of the current campaigns are just a little more catch as catch can kind of, and you know, there's nothing wrong with inviting the world, right? But we're really in a new era of very, very micro targeting, and we should probably look at, you know, whether we can collectively with the providers, if they haven't already, see how we can acquire, maybe you already are, but acquire some of the very, very micro-targeting marketing information from those companies.
You know, one of the ways that the school boards prepare for the upcoming years is that they have an analysis on the population that relate back to the birth rate, the retirement age. I don't know that they skimp on something like that because it anticipates how they're going to spend their money in future years. And so I wonder if there's an opportunity for us to maybe gather some of those demographics, not have to do, you know, reinvent the wheel here, but if we already know who our population is, and I'm telling you, I'm like struggling with the Latino community because we know they're younger. We know they're having more children. For sure. So they're having families, and so when we think about, well, are they going to become foster care parents or ISFC or obviously or the plus? If they're limited to not having any children in the home, that's not going to happen, right? It's just not. It's not realistic, and families live intergenerationally with one another. And so then that's going to take us into a different population. So one, I'd love to see, like, let's look, have a further analysis into how to engage the Latino community, the Black and Brown community, because this is who is overrepresented in our systems. And to really have an intentional and a strategic plan, whatever it is, whether it's through social media or however we think is most fit. Because there's two populations that I'm thinking about. One is the Latino community and actually being responsive to what engages them and looking at what the limitations are. I'm going to say probably economics and that they have children in the home. And then the second is our aging community and those who are empty nesters. We have a great deal of empty nesters, and they shouldn't be playing just pickleball out there. They should be doing something a little different with they could be doing something different through us. If we sold this, not sold, but just if we amplified our message and the opportunity for them to step into the lives of children that really need them. I think they could find meaning, especially when you're an empty nester. You're trying to figure out what it is. Can I volunteer? Can I figure out what else am I going to do?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think you can get so granular right now where you can identify who are the specific folks who had kids, whose kids maybe now have grown up, right? And who may be showing some interest in these relevant overlap areas. So again, I don't know to what extent some of this may already be happening, but it is really now the power of being able to do this very, very micro marketing helps you reach folks and also reach them at the right time. So the other thing is that people have different interests and they might be willing to explore different opportunity, and then they go down different paths. And part of it is also can you catch somebody at the right moment where they're actually serious about this potential engagement, and then give them that hook and start working with them. And that's where there's also some tremendous power in being able to see. I mean, this is what gets manipulated against us today by the social
Absolutely.
media,
They know
companies,
us.
and your Instagram feeds or your whatever else, and you start showing interest in one thing, and then it starts feeding you.
Yep.
But companies use that, of course, to feed you so that they can get you to
Yeah.
hooked on a product.
We should learn from them.
And there's, I think, a lot of opportunities for us in government to take advantage of some of those same tools, but for a very different reason, right? Very different purpose.
Absolutely. For so many different reasons, for fundraising, so we can actually get maybe a campaign plan. If not, I mean, there's an opportunity for us maybe in mid-year to figure out, is there an opportunity, or even beforehand, you are the county executive and we are the board, and if there's something that is absolutely necessary in order to ensure that our kids are not going to Fresno or Stockton or some other, because there's a lot of kiddos that are going outside of our out of our county, and not only is that taken away from our social workers, but they're being taken out of our community.
That's right, yeah.
And that connection that they talked about, that is so important. So, do I hear a level of commitment from your office to have a media campaign plan that would elevate the involvement of the Black and brown community into our foster care system? Is that what I hear you saying?
Yeah, I think you're hearing that we will look at what we're currently doing and figure out how to modify that and figure out how to build upon that, and also see what the providers are currently doing and how we can basically take what we're doing today and bring it to the current generation, current approaches to this work with specific even from the language standpoint, right? Specifically looking at how are we doing that outreach, for example, in Spanish language, Vietnamese, and other channels. So we will take a look at that and come up with a plan to build upon what's happening and what's working now. I mean, I'm sure there's some rich information on, as you're finding providers, them indicating how they first got an interest, right? So, I think we should have some really good data to work from in building out that plan.
Wonderful. Well, I'd love to see it come back so we can have an update, and then learn how our boards can play a part. But I think we need to figure out a strategic plan in terms of effort that involves not only you, but us and those stakeholders that might be potential targets to be partners as well, whether they're neighborhood associations or at church. I know that one of the panelists the other day on this study session said, we don't take a look at churches so often because the government wants to be very separate from religion, but they happen to be good partners when they are supporting our families. And anytime there is a crisis, our churches step up. And so they shouldn't actually be left out either. Lastly, I'm just going to, and so thank you so much for all of the really wonderful information.
I would just say, Supervisor, we have some
Yes.
great faith-based partnerships as an organization across multiple domains, including in DFCS space, but also, reentry, many other domains. And so I don't think even though we're obviously an organization that is very cognizant of our role as a governmental entity and those commitments that we have, I do just want to dispel any suggestion that we don't work in a lot of domains very closely
Sure.
with the faith-based community.
Sure.
Everything from emergency response, so you're exactly right on that front, but across other domains too, and they've been excellent partners in a lot of this work.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. I think they're very much overlooked and continue to be good partners to us because they're an absolutely part and parcel of our community, and a lot of folks find them as they're the hub of some of our communities. And so, yes, thank you for that reminder. The last thing I'll just ask is will we put a work group together or something so that we can have a strategic plan, next steps, something that allows for us to strategically plan between departments, between the board offices, messaging, partnerships, stakeholders, next steps?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense for us to work with the providers and see what the current data is and the current efforts that they conduct as well, and build upon that. And we need that close engagement because we don't want to be doing work that's at cross purposes or we want to make sure the investments that are being made are coordinated in
Right.
that effort.
Absolutely, and so our money can be very well spent, and energy as well. Lastly, I just wanted to say that I heard that there's some amazing things that are happening, and this is not in this report, but there is a Mockingbird family model, and we heard this from the CAFPA parent, and it's a program that is a constellation of 6 foster care homes with a hub that has like a mentor. And so I just think how amazing that is, that you're shifting and being responsive to our community to figure out how do we continue to support and then continue to have their engagement, right? Because as soon as maybe some folks figure out that it's a lot more difficult than they figured it was going to be, how do we continue to engage them and retain them? And so I just thought that was absolutely amazing, and congratulations on the work that is happening. I know that it's a pilot program that's really innovative and coming from our department, and thank you so much for all of the resources that you contribute to this, and I look forward to seeing potentially one in South County. I'm always going to talk about South County. I know there's one, I think, somewhere in the east side, but there's one if there's one in South County, I'd love it. I love it when people think outside of the box, and that's definitely outside of the box thinking. And so thank you for all the work that you're doing. Thank you for the presentation, for the efforts, and let's continue to work with one another so that we can be actual partners and not just be somebody that you report to, every 6 months or so. We want to have, at least I want to have a meaningful engagement with you so that we can continue to look at this in a way that produces results and growth in the network and the availability of those homes for our kiddos. So I'm going to look to my co-chair, who definitely wants to provide comment.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming here today and for presenting. And Chair, thank you I know this was by your request to have this item discussed today. So I'm really appreciative of all that. I know Denise seems to have had to go. I know she has very busy, as you all do. Matt, I really appreciate you tying retention to recruitment, right? It's such a fluid inventory or team of families, because we're all one big team. out there as different host families are switching from one status to the next, or maybe advancing their level of care or stepping down from a level of care, that we should be nimble and have constant recruitment going. But to keep families, or to keep foster caregivers in our system and to stay where they are, retention is absolutely necessary. And just wanted to see if I can get some of your thoughts about where we could be better in retention. I know that over the years, there's been various discussions about faster reimbursement times, greater availability of respite care. We just saw the governor's budget try to, I don't know, I can't remember if they were successful or not, but basically also making budget cuts to provide for respite care. Could you give us some insight into that?
I can share a couple of thoughts and then look to you all as well. But I think what we have seen at Seneca is, I think, first of all, we make housing available free of charge to our caregivers. And I know housing in general has been a big topic of conversation among providers and with DFCS. But that, both making it available, but I think also investing in housing beyond just the fact of having a house. So that means we've got an incredible facilities team that is absolutely responsive to the needs of maintaining a home where a caregiver is providing ISFC+. Those maintenance needs sometimes are a little more frequent than a general single-family home might be. I think every provider has different housing arrangements. Our caregivers are living in homes that we lease, and we have long-standing relationships with the owners, the landlords, who have a real clear understanding of what we do. So when you talk about community involvement in this kind of work, it really even extends to the landlords who own the homes and have an understanding of how they're contributing to community support in those homes. So, just some more details on housing there. And then I also I want to really appreciate the partnership with DFCS at multiple levels over the number of years where we have been providing this service. I think there have been, the partnership has evolved over time, I think, to really appreciate more and more the importance of input from the parents to in treatment, from the placement process through treatment, through transition. I think we've had some pretty strong evolution of involvement of parents in the initial conversations around a youth coming into their home. We just talked about, wait list and children who could be benefiting from these homes. And so often there is a lot of urgency. And I think what we have learned over time is that sometimes you have to move slow to move fast. So I think we've made some really great gains with our partners in involving parents early on in slowing down the process of a transition of a child coming into a home, which has ultimately led to much better outcomes and more stable placements and more sustainability for our caregivers. So, I mentioned just respect earlier, and I think those are some of the examples where that has really, our Seneca's caregivers have reported back that those efforts have helped them feel more valued in the process and be more likely to continue with the next kid that might need their care. But anything else that y'all would like to speak to related to retention?
I think one of the biggest retaining factors for this level of caregiver and those that serve needs of other children is knowing that we take our time with the exit plan as well. That should be highlighted because they want to set these kids up for success and be supportive. And we train all of our foster parents that your job is not going to be just to work with the professionals, but also with who the next caregiver will be, whether that's bio family, another foster family, it doesn't matter, that this is one team for one child. And so that child also has that experience at that broader network. That is very key to the resiliency of the current caregiver, and knowing that there are others involved that care about this child, and that transition can be really thoughtful. That it's not an overnight process, it's not a 6-month process, but that it's really thoughtful and planful and targeted, so that helps them know that a break is coming, yet this is going to be successful in the long run, and that those connections are real. So I think that's another component of retention.
Thank you for that. I'm going to turn to our staff. Is that, do we have, and I'm assuming the answer is yes, but for clarity and my own edification, there is a feedback loop that we receive at an administration to ensure that foster parents and caregivers have what they need, or that we're always working towards making sure they have what they need to be able to provide for the kids who need them.
Absolutely, and we've really messaged out that caregivers are just like anyone else at the table. We need to make sure that we value, probably even more so, the feedback that we're getting on that. So we definitely have that in process, both in partnership, I want to say, with Denise and CAPFA overall on items, but then for our higher level and with our FFAs as well.
Yeah. So recently, our county had our county fair, right? And I want to give a shout out to Celine Dorte, the ED of the fairgrounds, who made thousands of county fair passes available to our foster resource families, just to make sure that whatever access or resources we have, especially within the county's control, that we're making it readily available to our foster resource parents. And that's one example of it's a quick and easy thing. County hosted the fair. The fairgrounds is fun, and you know, with all the fun foods and everything, let's make sure we get free passes to our foster resource families right away. So I would love to see us be more intentional about that, versus someone having an idea, or because it occurred to them that, oh, like, I think as we're doing outreach in schools for these family activities, being able to also have it front of mind for our foster resource families. And I think Michelle, was you a while ago that said that, how do we move towards a place where this is at the forefront, right? That everything we do, we're also going to think about foster youth, foster resource families at all levels, and make that almost second nature to anything that we're doing, including, I'm going to add in there my part, the county fair. Something as simple as that. Or since I have this flyer in front of me, the senior safari. Right? How do we have these family, multi-generational, cross-generational events always have inclusive in the outreach process our resource families? We could assume that there are wide, they're multi-generational, they're a wide range of generations being part of this resource family community.
Yes, and I think that goes to retention as well. Having the natural supports around the caregivers is very important. Their own community that understands the work, and when appropriate and available, to actually go through at least some of the training with them as well. So we know that the more intensive caregiving becomes, the more important your own natural support network and their understanding of what you're doing as well.
You're absolutely right. I think that it sounds like retention is just as important as any tool for recruitment, that the best reviews and the best recruitment is going to come from people already doing this work, saying that they're supported, saying that there's a community that you're going to be able to tap into, and you're going to get to do this with a whole bunch of really cool families together. I wanted to also reinforce the discussion we've had today around cultural competency in our recruitment efforts, and having that representation. And as we're doing that, also shoring up representation and that cultural competency for all families, making sure that for our kids that we're supporting matched activities, events, access to communities that reflect their cultural heritage. And I know that that's not going to be something that our foster resource centers can do alone. It's going to be a partnership too, in making sure that there's access and understanding that there's a whole community out here that is also just as active and as lively, and there's plenty of engagement opportunities. And then, let's see. I think when we were talking about the recruitment strategies, there are, looking to our labor movement, there are numerous, I think every labor union, every affiliation is going to have a retiree member group, labor movements for life. So there's a lot of folks who go through they go through their careers being a member of the union, and then they join the retiree group. So I think there's a whole, in terms of timing, there's younger workers entering the industry. There's folks who are well into their career, and those who are already preparing for retirement in a couple years, right? So could that be an opportunity for recruitment because of, again, the importance elevated today of that broad generational opportunities, of where we can really get people in that moment where they're thinking about, what do I do next to contribute to the world and to my community? And that's also a strong community too, that also has its own network of support there. And if there's anything we can do to help bridge that relationship or help reinforce that, I certainly, we both have two very deeply involved labor movement leaders here that I think we could all help with that relationship too. And I'm just thinking about all the different events that's coming up soon for Labor Day, additional outreach opportunities or presentation opportunities. The last thing I'll say is that my office in the last budget cycle, what's that? That just happened so long ago. We provided, through my office, I provided a grant to child advocates of Silicon Valley, specifically to do foster resource parent recruitment. And part of their ask was not just a grant, but also a partnership with the county, our county entity, in terms of helping to develop messaging and helping to weigh in and connect with the right focus groups and right partners. And I would imagine that any effective storytelling, public education, recruitment campaign is going to depend on your partnership and participation. We certainly can't think of this up on our own, no matter how good a PIO may be. And this is going to be, it's going to be heart and soul, right? Telling the story of humans and how we can connect to each other. But I would say let's loop them into this conversation as well, if they're not already watching. And Jennifer, I just want to thank you for opening up this discussion with a very human story. I think that when I talk to people, this is just a sample of one, so I could totally be wrong, and it may not be reflective. When we talk about foster care, foster youth, and foster families, sometimes people have this immediate reaction that it's an infinite problem that can never be resolved, or it's something that will require infinite resources, and it deserves infinite resources, but the reality is we don't have infinite resources. And one child is one child too many without a stable, loving family network and home environment. But we can wrap ourselves around this, and when you tell the human story, when you humanize, and there's names, and there's experiences, and there's joy, and there's challenges that is detailed the way you did, I think we all feel the story. And I'll tell you that sample of one, I felt that, hey, that's something that I can do. I don't have to be a perfect parent to do that. I don't have to be a perfect human being to care for another, and I'm hoping that that's a message that we can get out to the world. So thank you so much for this conversation today. I'm going to turn to James now too. Hey, James. I would say there is an existing grant for foster parent resource family recruitment. So there's a bit of seed money in there. Like with our Child Advocates of Silicon Valley, there was an ask for the expertise of our OCPA office. So as we're developing a strategy moving forward and how to develop the messaging and the storytelling and the campaign for recruitment out of this, I would just offer those are some good places to start. And of course, leaning into the support of our care providers and our community partners to tell us what messages have worked. Can we sample or get some reflections from our current foster parents? Like what was the messaging that worked for you to help us start thinking about this?
Yeah, absolutely. And our OCPA team does some really beautiful work. So I think there's a real opportunity to leverage some of that here as well.
Thank you. Those are all my comments and questions and my deepest appreciation for the work you all do every single day. With that, I'll make a motion to receive the report.
Thank you, and I will second that. Can we add in that to circle back with our county administration or our county executive, excuse me, to put together a more strategic plan on the campaign?
Yeah, let's get a
Public
report.
campaign.
Let's get a report back in terms of what develops around a communication plan and strategy to recruit more foster parents and tell the story of our work.
Awesome. I'm going to second that again. Go ahead, Camille.
Vice Chairperson Young
Yes.
and Chairperson Arenas.
I'm going to say yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Perfect. All right. So we're going to move into something very similar. This is item 5. I think we should have heard it simultaneously, but we are going to hear once again. This is item 5, receive report from Social Services Agency relating to foster care and placement service contracts.
Thank you, Chairperson Arenas. Daniel Little, Social Service Agency Director. So item 5 is really the first in a series of reports that are going to be coming back over this next year outlining social service contracts. I think it's clear why we wanted to do this today. We're happy to have a very high-level overview. We can go straight to questions, whichever the members would approve.
I'm going to look to my co-chair and see, would you like a little bit of a summary?
I think a bit of an overview would be good. These are new terms. I can at least say for myself that I'm learning, and it'll be good to help level set the conversation for the public to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Supervisor Young, Supervisor Arenas, I'm happy to provide a bit of an overview on this. As Dan had said, we thought that it was perfect to bring back kind of what do these services look like. And as you heard from our distinguished panel today on ISFC Plus, what we brought before you is our continuum of foster care placements. So as been mentioned to you, DFCS provides a comprehensive array of foster care placements aimed at doing the least restrictive setting in a home-based setting whenever possible for the types of services that we have. In your ledge file, you have both in that continuum our ISFC and then our IFSC plus. I love the alphabet soup on things. And there is some similarities in those programs, but we have spelled out in this some of the differences on this. A couple of baseline information I'll just point out about our foster care placements is with California's continuum of care reform, it prioritized that we must at all levels make sure we are providing home-based care. We must ensure that it comes from a trauma-informed lens. We must ensure that we have the most appropriate clinical support that meets a child's needs rather than congregate setting. So we hold that tightly. I would just point out for this board as well, I like to show the continuum and where the efforts of the county have done to do that. You've heard from Matt today from Seneca, our ESTRTP, and most short-term residential treatment programs have 6 in their homes. So although not a home-based setting, we have no more than 2. So this county really does prioritize the importance of individualized care. I'll also point out, they were sitting in the room, but behavioral health being here, in all of these services, you'll hear as I highlight some of these programs, we stay in tight partnership with blended and braided funding from our behavioral health partners as well. So, and as I'll detail some of the high level, both our ISFC and our ISFC Plus have specialty mental health blended in there whenever possible for our kids, making sure we are leveraging both placement funding, but then the specialty mental health program as well. So I'm going to give you just kind of a highlight on our IFSC. Very similar to ISFC Plus, it involves intensive case management, care coordination, clinical consultation, crisis intervention, caregiver coaching and skill development, permanency planning, because these are not permanent placements for these kids to step down, coordination of their educational needs, their medical needs, their behavioral health needs, and the overarching goal is to stabilize children in that placement, reduce placement disruptions. So we are really judged within child welfare by the number of times kids move, and then getting them to permanency. Permanency either going home with a relative or for a lower level of care. In both ISF and ISFC Plus, it can serve from birth to age 21, but most kids are going to have some more acute behaviors and need additional help and support. Additional eligibility, I'll just point out, these children served in these programs are full scope Medi-Cal. They have to have an open DFCS case or probation case. So just a gentle reminder, although lower numbers, our probation youth are served in these same types of placements. And in order to keep siblings together, I only need one child to qualify for an ISFC. We would take their siblings with them. To a point earlier, Supervisor Arenas, sometimes we do make exceptions for the ISFC Plus for siblings as well. Although we want one child per placement, there is some exceptions for some of that because we are also evaluated on making sure we keep siblings together. Funding for our first I'll talk about ISFC first. So those homes are certified by our foster family agency. So you met 3 of our agencies sitting before you today. However, we have multiple other agencies we partner with. In your packet, you'll see Aspiranet, Creative Alternatives, Environmental Alternatives, New Families, Sierra Vista Children's Services. You will note that none of them are in our county. So our ISFC Plus are certified by FFAs. The state does their certification. Most of those, I said, are out of county. We've invited those partners to come in. It also doesn't require an MOU with those partners, although DFCS SSA is entering into agreements with them, just so we can make sure we have the outcomes needed as we track those programs. Just kind of as far as numbers served in these types of placements, so over the last year for our ISFC, we had 56 youth placed in that placement. Typically, our amount that we are spending is between $3 million and $7 million, but that really varies because, as I said, depending on the level of care a child needs, that will go up and down. So it really depends on the population in front of me serving, how high or low that will be based on those child's needs because it's all individually based. For ISFC Plus, we pull down both federal dollars, state dollars, and county realignment and blend all of that funding. In Santa Clara County, approximately 50% of our children are federally eligible, which means we draw down a lower percentage than sometimes other counties if their percentage is higher. Each of the youth that are served in the ISFC Plus will also have some mental health qualifications. So as I said, these tend to be higher needs youth. In comparison, for our ISFC Plus, as you heard from Jennifer Greer, we served 26 youth in the last fiscal year in that type of placement. For just comparison, we serve ISFC Plus under our innovative models of care, so we're able to draw down a larger percentage. However, we do have to supplement that with realignment, so it does cost us more for our ISFC Plus. Our theory on this is that kids deserve a home-based care, and if we can serve them in the home-based versus that residential care, we want to build in that same support for that child. And as you heard from the example and our outcomes, which I'll go back to, that 90% of our kids step down from that ISFC Plus. It's a tremendous value for us to invest in the kids in our community, especially those that may have the highest complex needs and some of the highest trauma. With that, I think I'll pass over for any questions. That's kind of your high level, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
If I could just add a couple comments on the funding mechanisms for these services. One of the things that I think is challenging and that exacerbates our challenges in Santa Clara County, and I'm sure shared across Bay Area counties, that I think contributes to out-of-county placements, is that the state doesn't have an appropriate adjustment in the funding based on the cost of living, especially the cost of housing, but the cost of living on a county-by-county basis. So these are statewide rates that the state sets. And the absurdity of that, given the diversity of California, is pretty patent. And we, being where we are in California, experience the most extreme portion of that. So even though we massively supplement what the state does, and even though a huge percentage of our youth in this county actually don't qualify for federal and state participation. And so that becomes then basically a county fiscal obligation. The reality is, even where there is state participation, it's being capped out at these generic statewide levels. And maybe those levels work in some parts of the state. My guess is those counties would say even still they're too low, but they certainly don't work in Santa Clara and San Mateo and Alameda and other places. And our county in particular is even one of the very highest cost in the Bay Area. And that's a real problem. And it's not appropriate because it is directly contrary to the state's own requirements, which we agree with, that we're trying to keep youth in the schools that they were at, in the communities that they have grown up in. But it's a fatal flaw in not just this program, but other related ones too. But it shows up here, so I wanted to flag it. It's a really big problem. There's no adjustment on a county-by-county basis.
Very interesting. And before we engage in a conversation, I'll look to Camille to see if there's any public comment.
There are no requests to speak.
Okay. Did I see your light?
Yeah, I wanted to add into what James had said. I think the other component is the ISFC plus rate is capped at the short-term residential treatment care rate, which again is a statewide thing. And we know from seeing statewide the decrease in STRTP capacity, and we've heard from providers that rate is not sufficient for that level of care, and then for them to use that same benchmark for ISFC plus. The other thing I would add is the prior panel talked about a different rate structure that the state is exploring. So they're talking about going to a tiered rate, which is like 5 different tiers depending on the need of the child. And there hasn't been a lot of specific information shared with counties, but what we have kind of heard and pieced together is a considerable amount of worry that a large chunk of our foster parents are actually going to lose a little bit of funding. And there's a very small number that may actually increase based on a higher level of care for the child, but for a big chunk of our families, they're going to see an actual slight decrease, which again, to James' point, for us is going to be devastating because we know that cost of living and cost of housing is a huge barrier to recruiting, continuing to recruit foster parents in our area.
Oh, boy. So aside from not having enough in our network, we might have even further. I'm sure that you'll keep track of who drops off at what rate. And I know that there's some legislative policies already on the table, but I think it had more to do with STRTPs than ISFCs and plus. Is that so?
Yeah, I think that focus was on the STRTPs, but the rates, as I think Dan was pointing out, that they're currently the same rate.
And that tiered rate is something that has already been, this is what they've worked out? The tiered rate, is that?
The tiered rate is
Is a
something the state
solution?
is currently, it was presented as a solution, but I think as we've gotten a little bit of information, we're seeing it's actually not probably a solution for the vast majority of our foster parents.
Okay, and then is there a level of involvement that we will play a part in that tiered formula to push back, to maybe change
Yeah,
it?
so typically these processes are done at the administrative level by the relevant state agency, so in this case CDSS, and generally speaking, the counties collectively will provide input, usually through the relevant association, so in this case, the CWDA. The reality, though, is if what they're doing is carving up the same pot of money in multiple tiers, that's not going to solve our issue, which is we're higher cost, right? So in the absence of the legislature and the budget process actually augmenting the pot, so to speak, what we're going to get from CDSS is different iterations of carving it up in different ways. And, since, we might be the largest county in Northern California, but, we're only one of 58 counties. So whenever it's a carving up game, so to speak, the fact that we and a few other Bay Area counties happen to be very high cost of living counties, because it's a zero sum, how are you dividing a pot up, there's not sufficient leverage in that conversation to actually get our unique needs addressed. So what we actually need to see, in my view, I mean, of course, we will engage in those in those conversations. I'm just saying they're not going to do. It's not going to result in anything if it's just carving up that same pie. And so what we actually need is, for instance, the legislature to affirmatively say formulas shall account for cost of living differences in different parts of the state, right? Because then it becomes a mandatory factor. Now, that doesn't determine exactly what the rate is. There's still going to be, carve out, issues around how it's carved up. There's still going to be back and forth. But without those kinds of little pushes in the statute, it's really almost like talking to a void in a sense, because, and I don't mean that in any disparaging way to the state agency. It's a reality of what they're working with on their piece of paper, of what things look like, and we see this across a lot of domains. This is not unique to this area, right? We see this in healthcare, right? We're going to have one of our major concerns with the state-only Medi-Cal shift to the state fee-for-service is we're no longer going to have a rate that reflects the fact that hospitals in the South Bay are the most expensive in the state of California. And I'm not just talking about, we're literally surrounded by 7 of the 10 most expensive hospitals in the state, right? We see this in the rates on probation funding streams. We see this in the rates on, on housing funding. This is a problem where those of us in the Bay Area, because we're the highest cost of living part of the state, don't get adjustments in how these statewide funding streams are allocated, and a dollar from the state just doesn't go as far here as it does in Fresno or as it does in or even in Southern California, right? We see this in the senior nutrition program. Looking at Vanessa, we're not getting the adjustments, and yet when we have to deliver the same units of service, whether it's a meal or a home or a nurse, it costs a lot more here. It just does. And so the resource we're getting doesn't reflect that. And the irony of that is for entitlement type programs, there's no cap on the federal money. So, and that's not true for every funding stream, but for a lot of these programs that are entitlement funding programs, there's no cap on the federal money. And so the state is handicapping ourselves in a way by not producing the match from actually maximizing what we potentially could get in federal drawdown and federal resources. So in other words, if you think about the program being, let's say it's a 50-50 share program, in order to save 50 cents.
I'm sorry, is this one?
I think this is, remind me, this has federal share, right, for eligible? It's 50-50? They're usually about.
So we could have more on the table.
Yeah, so in order to basically save the state general fund 50 cents, our community loses $1 because we're also giving up the federal match. In the case of the ACA expansion population, in order for the state to save 10 cents, we're losing $1 because the federal match is 90%. But typically, it's usually more between 40 and 60 for these different funding streams, usually more in the 50% range. So, I think it's penny wise and pound foolish. And it's a very acute issue for the types of programs where there's housing type needs, because of those costs are really high here. And I would argue for those types of programs, it's not even sufficient in reality to do a generic cost of living adjustment. You should also be looking at that component of cost of living here that's actually housing, which is even worse for us relative to the rest of the state. And I know we have allies in, you know, San Mateo County and a few other Bay Area counties because they have the same issue. It's the exact same issue for them. It's just, we don't have the heft on our own to push on that. But it makes all of these services and programs we're talking about much harder to deliver, and we're asked to either augment with county money, which we do, but there's, you know, there's limits to what we can do there, and asked to try to deliver the same amount of proportionate service that can't go as far. But it's a serious issue here, so I wanted to flag that, but it's not unique to this.
Got it. Well, now I'm very depressed. So is there a legislative fix that we can target, either with the new governor coming in, an opportunity to
Yeah,
have?
there is. I think the ask would be for this and other funding streams to add mandatory language that requires the relevant agencies to account for cost of living in their formulas and allocations. Yeah, and this is, again, it's an issue across the board. I mean, this is even, you know, for every department that's represented up here, this is an issue in funding streams. You know, even looking over there at our Department of Child Support Services, and it's one of the reasons that department keeps shrinking, because, you know, the state pot stays fixed and our costs go up. So this is a very significant issue across the board. Yeah, I do think it's a very hard lift, because, you know, to be clear, what we're asking the state to then do is figure out a way to recognize that in the formula by augmenting state match funding in these formulas. And, you know, the reflexive reaction from the state's going to be, that costs us money, no. Again, I think as a lowercase s state, meaning not capital S, the state as a organization, but the state meaning all of us here serving the public, we're leaving federal money on the table. And so it's penny-wise and pound-foolish. And I think I would love to see a governor who recognizes that piece of things and says, let's figure out a way to do these maneuvers and come up with the local money to pull in, local meaning state money, to pull in that federal share to the maximum degree possible. But that takes a different kind of strategic vision around that, and the ability to identify the upfront investment to make that happen. And you know, we just haven't had that with this current administration, for sure.
Are there any other states that are actually surpassing our, I know California, that are doing this, this kind of matching in terms of having a higher amount by the state, so that the federal reimbursement is...
Like where they do different local pieces? You know, I think,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not quite sure. It would be interesting. The state I'd be most curious about is how the state of New York and New York City look at that. I would be surprised, I don't know, but I would be surprised if New York State didn't have a unique formula structure for New York City. It's obviously of high cost of living relative to upstate New York, and but it's also so large. So, you know, one of the differences, though, in a lot of the East Coast is the way local governments are funded is very different. So one of the challenges we have here in California is our hands are also tight on revenue. So, most East Coast local governments, they don't have anything like Prop 13. So, take states like New York or New Jersey or Massachusetts, et cetera, they still do what we used to do before Prop 13, which is on an annual basis, they adjust their local property tax levies to raise the local funds that are needed to then maximize whatever drawdown they need. And then the way those states typically deal with the political challenge that led to Prop 13, which is, what do you do about someone who might be elderly who then is getting, tax burden that, but lives on a fixed income, whose house is appreciated in value, right? That was the supposed poster child that led to Prop 13. Typically what those states do is they then have a program where the state government, not the local government, the state government does a rebate or offset to, for example, senior citizens who are in the family residence so that they get basically like a state credit, so to speak, against their tax bill, which is a much more targeted form of relief, of course, than what Prop 13 did. So, so the nature of what this looks like certainly in states, to the east of the Mississippi is very, very different. And, it's, and that shapes some of what happens at the national level pretty significantly too. So, we can certainly look a little bit more at what New York does, but, but California also is different in being one of the few states that runs a lot of these programs via counties. So most states, a lot of the kinds of services that we talk about in this committee, for example, are actually directly operated by the state government with no count. They're not locally operated. They're state-operated programs. So, so there's a lot of, so it's hard sometimes to do apples to apples because of that. And then the other reality, of course, is when we talk about cost of living, we all know that, it's California and a handful of other counties, right, that have these very, very high cost of living realities, and many of those other counties that look from a housing cost standpoint similar to us are in those states that I was just describing, right, Maryland or Virginia or Massachusetts, Connecticut, that do have this very different model of local government funding. So, so it's hard to find an exact kind of apples to apples.
Well, hopefully we will find our apples to oranges here, somewhere that, something that can work, but I mean, I think there's so much potential with the new administration coming in. I have hope.
I hope so. I think, well, it's righteous, right? Because if you, I mean, the point that I would make is California as a state government should be deploying resources equitably to serve children across the state in a fair manner. And if you say, as a state government, knowing how big California is, if you say as a state government, we're going to give every county in the state the same rate for this specific, these services, and we're talking about the highest needs, high acuity youth, that what you're really saying as the state government is we're going to give more resources to some counties in our state, and in other places of the state, like Santa Clara County or San Mateo County, we're actually going to give them less, because the same rate, we know this, right? Equity and equality are not the same thing. Saying, oh, well, we got the same rate is not actually equity. It means you're actually giving that same youth who happens to be in Santa Clara County less of an access and opportunity than that same youth who happens to live in another part of the state, because of that cold hard reality of what it costs to deliver the exact same level of care.
Well, let me ask this. Is that partly maybe one of the root causes or the reasons why we go out of our county and that we find more homes outside of our county because they're more plush with resources than we are? And cheaper to run.
Yep.
Yes. 100%. It's why you'll see for all the it's not unique to Santa Clara County. The out-of-county percentages for Bay Area counties, San Mateo, all the Bay Area counties, are higher than you're going to see the out-of-county rates for Central Valley counties, or even Southern California. I mean, Southern California obviously also has an elevated cost of living, but not like the Bay Area.
Yeah.
So there's a direct, you can almost line it up, right? Out-of-county percentages and cost of living, those charts look almost identical.
Interesting.
And it's exactly because of the same rate issue.
Yeah. Well, let's get at it that way. Okay, I think I asked some of my questions that I had for this item. I kind of asked it in the previous item, so I think I'm done with some of my questions, but I'm wondering if my co-chair, yes?
Thank
Comments?
you. So thank you for this very robust, thorough report. It was very edifying. I see you getting ready to take notes. I won't be giving any direction today, really just ideations. And I appreciate the conversation. So most of my questions was about the funding model, just seeing all the numbers and the caps, and then the county general fund realignment share versus the federal match. And so this conversation has actually more than answered my questions I had around funding. James, is this something that, IGR is going from office to office asking for our legislative ideas and our bill ideas? I know that what I'm hearing from you is that this is a constant challenge across multiple domains of how we are funded or reimbursed through state and federal sources, the adjustments of local costs of living. But, it sounds like you said it's going to be a heavy lift, but many hands make for light work. So is this something that we could even start continue to lay the groundwork for?
It can be. I mean, the challenge there is, we have some of these principles already embodied in our legislative policies, right? And there's many items all throughout the policies on these points. There are only so many really big fiscal pushes, right, we can try to drive at one time, realistically speaking, in Sacramento. So at this moment in time, the biggest push we're trying to make, because it has the biggest fiscal impact on us, is the push on healthcare funding because of what's happening right now in the moment. This issue is another really big one, but it would be a big push item. Like these are the kinds of items where this would be, the main item that we were working on, and that necessarily means other items you're not, right? Because you can't be there asking for 10 gigantic fiscal related items at the same time. This is a fiscal item.
That hasn't stopped us before, but I hear what you're
Well,
saying. And
you can ask for them, you won't, but if you want to be successful.
Its success may not be delivered today.
Right.
It may not be delivered next year, but I think we can continue to toe the line and hold firm that this is something that needs to be met and it needs to be resolved if we're actually going to get out from under this issue. And Sarah, I see your hand up.
I just want to reference that everyone you see here meets very regularly with the Bay Area counties in different areas of social services. Yesterday, we actually had, and it's called the Bay Area Social Services Consortium, and yesterday we hosted all the fiscal leads here, and I went and did opening remarks, and they go over all the different strategies to try to recognize more funding, figure out what the legislative platform is if appropriate on funding. So there's a very strong set of kind of welfare advocates in that consortium here. And so there's a lot of, discussion in Sacramento. But I hear James's point about the strategy. I would just say that these issues people are very well versed and meeting regularly, like on a bi-monthly or quarterly basis to discuss what's going on and figure out if there's any way to draw down more funds. And if there's any way to advocate. So if there's anything you're hearing of interest, connect with us and we can bring those in, like on a regional basis, we can bring those into some of the conversations.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm also going to ask the same of you from these consortiums and convenings if there are high-level, high points or unified asks being made amongst the consortium that I would want to be able to, I want to make sure that I'm echoing the same talking points in the spaces that we're at. We, all your board members operate and sit on various regional bodies, and you never know where you're going to get that help or make that connection. So thank you so much for this very edifying report and presentation. Oh, I heard you, James.
Yeah, I just want to say a couple other comments on this because I do think it is different, and I just want to name that it is obviously the agency heads from the Bay Area County. I mean, this is a perennial item that they raise, but it is very different, right, when supervisors raise the issue with legislators. It puts it in a different space and it becomes a different item. So I think there's tremendous value. I just want to say it very explicitly. I think there's tremendous value with it actually being a county legislative priority that versus just, our departments are fighting for stuff all the time, every single cycle nonstop, whether it's behavioral health or social services or public health or, everybody, right? But it's different when it becomes an organizational item. I think it makes sense to put this general item as an item on the agenda. I guess what you're hearing me say is I'm just doing some reality setting of the fact that I think for the upcoming cycle, when you just look at the dollar magnitude, we have to continue, I think, as an organization to put the healthcare piece first because it's crushing us, right? We're talking about hundreds and hundreds of millions. And so I think it does make sense to put this on the agenda with the eye towards it being a medium-term item as opposed to our urgent short-term crisis item of the healthcare funding. Because, the funding's all interconnected. And so not getting relief in FY27 on what we're facing on the healthcare side is going to have devastating consequences across the county organization. So, I think it's kind of thinking ahead, okay, what is our one-year legislative issue? What's our 2- and 3-year, right? And this is the kind of item that would have a meaningful impact. It's just not at the magnitude of the, this is not the billion-dollar item.
James, are you inviting a referral?
I don't think it needs to be a referral because the ledge policies are going to come forward, including to this committee. So I think as those come forward, I think it's about putting this up there on that agenda.
The legislative platform agenda.
Yeah,
Okay.
putting it on the agenda, just consciously putting it on the agenda as an item that we're looking for the right vehicle and opportunity to advance, and that we want to engage as an organization. But I think that makes good sense, and that is going to come. It's going to come through the committee. It's going to come to the board already. So I don't think you need a separate referral. It's about, and it's already embedded. Like I said, if you look at the legislative policies today, these issues are embedded in there. It's about making it so we don't have to add anything. It's about elevating it as more of a priority item instead of just an item departments are working on, but an item that the board is saying the board's going to work on too.
And Supervisor, the legislative recommendations from the directors will come to, this is one of the adjustments that our IGR team is going to make is, and I requested this because one, we're policymakers and we need to collaboratively work on policy that is going to be proposed to us so that we can, so that it isn't one baked by the time it comes to us, but also that we formulate some of that policy and shape it in the way that we see fit as policy makers. And so the directors will come to each of the respective committees and provide some of those recommendations because normally that process is those recommendations go through and go to the county executive's office. But what I'd like is for them to come to committee first, then go over to county executive. And then we can even talk at a separate time. I'm not going to talk too much about the process, but a separate time, what that process should actually look like and at what point should it come to us. Because when it comes to committee, it is a little bit baked. Like it's not completely baked, but it's like 60% or maybe even 70% already there. And so I think you bring up a really good point in terms of how do we prioritize what the county is going to go and advocate for. Because there's some of us who really want to see some changes around youth, children and youth. And to your point, James, we are leaving money on the table. Like that's money on the table. It says Celia is not matching your own retirement fund, right, from your employer. It's money left on the table. And so that money for me represents an opportunity to have those children receive intensive services. And also, we know that the suicide rate is going higher. We know that the state has already declared a crisis around young men, youth and men. And so we know what's coming down this pipe, except that there's not enough money. And I don't want to compete with health and hospitals. It's not a competition, but our youth deserve to be placed in a place of priority, just as much as any other system. So anyways, I appreciate your comments. And I wasn't sure if I'm done, if you were done, but I just wanted to interrupt it to let you know there was going to be a slightly different process for our input.
Yeah, very much appreciate it. And James, when you said this has to be on the agenda, I was actually confused which agenda you were talking about, but it's clear now. But thank you so much. I'll make a motion to receive the report. It was very edifying. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Sarah.
Wonderful, and I'll second that. And I think we have a shift in staff, so we'll ask for that vote. Once you're settled.
All right, Vice Chairperson Young
Yes.
and Chairperson Arenas.
I'm a
Did you do
yes,
public
too.
comment yet?
Motion carries.
I did.
Oh.
I did ask for public comment at the beginning, before we took comment. I'm sorry, what did you say?
There were no requests to speak.
Perfect. All right, we're going to move to item 7, which is receiving the bi-monthly verbal report from the Office of Children and Families Policy Social Services Agency relating to the continued alignment of the county-led children and youth system of care efforts with the City of San Jose Children and Youth Services Master Plan. Welcome.
Hello. Good afternoon. Chair Arenas and Vice Chair Young. Dr. Heidi Amberling, Director of the Office of Children and Families Policy. We continue collaborating with the grantees, piloting the Families First Community Pathway demonstration sites to align core intake questions and outcome measures to ensure consistency across all agencies. The organizational partners are building the infrastructure needed to look at trends among families at intake, access, and follow-up to county resource referrals, and how parents are supported to better understand their children's development and behavioral concerns. The agencies really recently submitted their Q4 reports. We're currently analyzing the data received. I met with City of San Jose, Grail Family Services, Catholic Charities, and Somos Mayfair on August 10th, and they let me know they'll dive deeper into the specifics of the data and share some family stories when they come present alongside me at the October 20th board meeting. I also learned new term, referral snowballing. This is when a family presents an initial issue like food or housing access, and once they build a relationship over time with a staff member, they begin to share other multiple needs. This is one reason that a no wrong door model of service delivery must be anchored in these trusted community organizations that build relationships with the community over time. Another learning that Somos and Grail shared is that the most critical current need is when the family breadwinner is suddenly detained and deported by ICE. Almost overnight, the stability of the family is in extreme jeopardy. Basic needs like food and housing become critical concerns, especially housing, which is a constant and persistent need. Catholic Charities uplifted that their longstanding work with the Franklin McKinley Children's Initiative and the partnership they've created over many years has helped with the identification of families in need and with connecting families to services that may be offered by the school district or other community partners who are integrated into the FMCI work. Because of their proximity to the school site and the relationships they've built over time, they can engage directly with school-referred families who may be at risk of systems involvement. The biggest emerging issue for the community-based organizations involved in the No Wrong Door effort is referral completion. There isn't a particular closed-loop referral system in place between county departments and the CBOs. The responsibility and burden tends to fall on the family and the community organization to stay in close contact over time, to monitor whether the family was able to connect to the resource or service, whether they receive the services they need, whether it improves the family's circumstances in the long run. The community organizations are building some infrastructure into their own databases to follow the family over time, so they will report back on that progress in October as well. I have a few numbers I can share from the Q4 reports, although I've just received them very recently in the last few days. For the Si Se Puede Collective, which includes Somos and Grail Family Services at Mayfair and Poco Way, the number of unduplicated families served is 1,126, and the number of families receiving a warm handoff referral is about 91% of those, or 1,025 families. For Catholic Charities at Seven Trees and Santee, the number of unduplicated families served is 545. And the referral trends indicate that families primarily seek services for basic needs support first. The leading drivers for these referrals are assistance seeking affordable housing, rental and utility assistance, childcare, and public benefits navigation. The average length of engagement is about 3 months. There's about a 20% drop off at that point, but the 80% that remain are steadfast in their engagement as they build those strong relationships with staff. The average number of service touch points per client is about 14. The most popular services provided by the Family Resource Centers are the parenting workshops, a wide array of workshops, and resource referrals. About 58% of the clients were able to link to the needed services. Barriers to service connections include wait lists, eligibility criteria, fears of government services because of immigration status, access to services like transportation needs or flexible hours of service. About 70% of families that participate in the community support services report that they have become more comfortable asking for help when needed. And that concludes my verbal report.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I'm going to ask to see if we have any speakers.
We have one request to speak online.
Okay, we will go ahead and do a minute, please.
1 minute, okay. Our speaker is parent. You will have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Yes, one barrier to service that wasn't discussed is when there's a conflict of interest. For instance, you know, the things that I told you about this person who's sex trafficking my kids is preventing the services from being rendered. And, you know, I've gone through lots of different doors, coming here, calling the CANC hotline, talking to the district attorney, emailing people, and every door is closed for me. And like I alluded earlier, you know, you don't hear about deaths or you don't hear about child abuse until somebody dies. It's got to be just the tip of the iceberg. So many kids must be abused because the county refuses to give the services. And I hope that we can change this and open the doors and get Jeff Rosen out of the Child Advocacy Center. Thank you for your time.
That concludes public comment.
Thank you. I'm going to look to my co-chair.
Thank you. Thank you for the update, Heidi. I know that aligning two big systems is not an easy task. It takes time, consistency, and managing many relationships, which I have a feeling that this is going to continue to grow in relationships and more partners at the table as we're heading in the right direction for this one. I really appreciate the efforts you've made to ensure that the county is a good partner in advancing the Children Youth Services Master Plan. Look, really, I know there's a lot of anticipation around the October report. I know that there were originally 7 strategic priority areas outlined in the plan, it sounds like organic conversations seems to lend itself to narrowing down some of these pillars of priority so that we're able to make more gains moving forward. But the original 7 strategic priorities include early learning and childcare, health and mental wellness, housing access and security, learning and empowerment, meaningful and sustaining jobs, safe, clean, and connected communities, and transforming systems of care. As a safety net, these focus areas naturally align with much of what the county is already doing, our existing work. So my roundabout way of asking this question is that, is there an existing county programs initiative, is there an inventory of the existing county programs and initiatives that advance these strategic priority areas?
I don't have a current list ready for you today, but I can certainly pull together information on the programs that exist. I can say that the 3 interconnected strategies that the city of San Jose is really focusing on right now, of those original 7, are that childcare access, which we will be talking about with our childcare blueprint coming up on September 15th. The kindergarten readiness assessment we shared with First 5 has done that work. We shared it on August 11th. The 3rd grade reading levels is certainly something that we track in the Children's Data Book with our Children's Agenda Network partners. Chronic absenteeism is something we're certainly looking at through the County Schools Collaborative as well as other areas. I think it was just discussed at the South County Youth Task Force this week. The Age-G college preparedness and workforce development, certainly there are a lot of partners working on those. And even though it's not one of the 3 sort of focused investment strategies, I know that housing has come up again and again in the needs of families through this work. And so I think there's room there to think through more around housing access for the families as well. So just off the top of my head, in terms of the shared alignment around these goals, I know there are a lot of programs going on right now that are directly addressing those areas. And then, of course, systems transformation is working together to identify what are the barriers to accessing these systems and how do we remove those, how do we be good partners together, like you said. So
Yeah.
thank you very much, Supervisor.
I appreciate that, Heidi. Thank you. And as we're heading towards this dovetailing or merging of 2 really massive systems that have done different work at different times with each other, or along this continuum of care, of someone in our system, can we have that as an attachment or on background in preparation for the October meeting? Just
Absolutely.
Yeah, like the programs you just listed, but also just an inventory of where programs are directly advancing this type of work and where programs, to your point, around the housing piece, where it's kind of orbiting around this type of work, where there is opportunity where we could dovetail or further advance with existing resources and efforts.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Heidi. I think that's it for my question. I'm very excited about for the big presentation in October. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to that presentation as well. I'd like to figure out what kind of data that the programs are offering on an ongoing basis. What is the cadence on collection of data and what you're actually sharing?
It's quarterly data reports. So the data that I just shared was from Q4 of year 1.
Q4 of year 1. Oh. Wait,
We're now in quarter 1 of year 2.
of year 2? So that we're a little behind there.
We haven't received the Q1 reports yet.
Got it. And
They will come in October.
in October. So is that an agreement that you already have in terms of when you're going to receive the data?
Yes, it's in our contract.
And is that data being received at the time that we agreed to?
Yeah, we have received both of our Q4 reports and from last year, and the Q1 report is not due until October.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'd like to see a deeper level of information on the families and the youth that are involved. This is something that I got started on as a council member And so this is something very close to me. And I'd love to see how this is unfolding and how it is in the moment actually changing. And so I don't know how families are getting targeted so that we are actually impacting youth that are in the juvenile justice system or that have been impacted in the juvenile justice system, and as part of the long-term violence prevention, or at least one of the prevention, one of the levels, right, or and one of the targets. So I'd love to see what at the primary prevention, what are those numbers, secondary, tertiary. I'd like to see disaggregated information. I'd love to see like who are these families that we are targeting. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I'm concerned about is this, and I've seen it happen in the Mayor's Gang Task Force, now called Youth Empowerment Alliance, and that is that there tends to be a very difficult, it's very difficult to secure the trust and confidence of families, and then of course the youth that are involved. And at times what was happening was it's so much easier to engage with a kiddo who doesn't necessarily need intervention but needs more prevention, yet those agencies were funded for intervention services, not for prevention services. And so it is a lot more expensive, it is a lot more labor involved, there's different kinds of strategies and skill sets in order to provide services for that kind of youth. And so I'm taking what I learned in the past when we have two systems or a number of systems working with one another, and then what are the agencies actually doing, and who are they actually providing services to? So that to me would be really important. Who are these families that we're actually providing services to? And in the realm of prevention, I'm guessing we're probably we're going to fare well, but in the terms of intervention, I don't know where we are, and so anyways, I'd love to see what that looks like, and then the outcomes for those families, and what is our target with them. What are we hoping to achieve? I would love to see it at that level of information. I haven't seen it in this report. And you're shaking your head, saying yes.
Yes. One, I know that the agencies in the community are very excited to come and share specific stories about some of the families that they're looking at, that they're supporting and serving through this effort, absolutely. In terms of the outcomes, they definitely are collecting as much outcome data as they can. I think I'm taking notes of the types of things that you'd like them to touch on in their presentations in October, so for sure, always open to getting those questions so that I can pass them along to the organizations, and we can talk about what we're all learning together.
Perfect. And then I'd like to understand further what tertiary prevention is and what's the difference between tertiary prevention and intervention. When does it actually become intervention?
Okay.
I'm asking as a question.
Oh, I actually am not as familiar with those terms, but I'll turn it over to Wendy.
I can answer that question. So the tiers of services that really came out of the FFPS is that those upstream, like and I'll use the same terms that the programs they're using. They sort of have their level 1, level 2, and level 3. So their level 1 are those that may just need like a touch point, a referral to a service. That level 2 is sort of like, let me help guide you to that and do a little bit more. And that tier 3 are really those that may need a little bit more of that case management, may need more of that. So I would say that's more of the intervention. So I think it's a little bit different model from the City of San Jose programs. When you're talking about that tertiary or intervention, these are really our upstream services that are our prevention services that are all going to that. Intervention services and tertiary would be those families that are involved with us within the department. So they wouldn't be being served by this, although step-down families could be in that tier 3. So maybe a former foster youth, a family that was involved with the department would be that tier 3.
So the tier 3 or the level 3 is the tertiary prevention. Okay, so here it is, it's long after a violent event has occurred, and this level of intervention focuses on individual impact and may include rehabilitation of the person who caused harm or social services to lessen emotional trauma. So I guess my question still stands in terms of when do we actually call it intervention versus prevention? This is something violent, an incident that's a violent incident already occurred, and now it's the aftermath of a violent incident. And so, to me, that is more intervention and not prevention. So I guess I'm confused by the frame of the model frame of this. I'm sorry?
I'm just trying to figure, what report is that you're?
Oh, this is the report on justice service. Oh my gosh, this is the wrong report. That's why I'm.
Well, I'm trying to find. I'm looking at the.
I was like,
I was trying to find the report for the item.
I was like,
I'm like,
wait,
you're
how could we
reading
not
off of
understand
something.
this? Oh, I'm
can't
so
find the
sorry.
document.
This is a verbal report. I'm sorry. I skipped over to. I apologize, but I would like to have more additional information. Question still stands, though.
And Supervisor, what you were describing is the intervention. So what you described, we would expect to be the intervention. We would expect to be that higher. This is really that upstream.
Okay, and does that model apply to this?
I think it can, because the whole,
Well, I know it can, but does it? Like, what are we working from in terms of model?
So what you described in that on the tertiary and the intervention would be the department. So that would be the voluntary services, the court services. It would be our intervention. Your upstream work, those are those when I talked about those 3 tiers. That light touch.
The 3 tiers are in the upstream.
In the upstream, but the 3rd tier would really be those that would be like, let's say your highest level. So they might be someone who was involved with my system before. They might be someone who has a risk factor like being pregnant or parenting youth or homelessness that would require more support of those 3 tiers. Intervention would be going into the systems on that, like my system or the probation system.
Okay, but say it's a kid that is involved in quite a bit of maybe one incident just at the beginning. I guess I'm trying to figure out like when does it actually become intervention and not this upstream prevention? Because I feel like it's semantics. And if that's where we are kind of centering and couching our model, then wouldn't we ask for our Child and Youth Master Plan to also adopt our model of primary and tertiary, secondary and tertiary prevention in the upstream? Because I'm not sure that they're working with or actually, I don't know, because I don't know what the families look like. I don't know who they're serving, so I don't know what level of service they're actually providing.
I think, Wendy, did you want to Or should I?
I was just I think it may be helpful to bring back the visual on this and maybe talk through the families being served. I think that might be helpful.
Yeah, that would be helpful. But it also would be helpful to figure out, like, in our violence prevention model, our violence prevention model, I would imagine, would be used as a baseline for the other programs that are going to work within that realm. Or is this something different that the agencies that we've contracted with then determine how and who they're going to serve? I guess how do both overlap? And how do we guide agencies within our own violence prevention model?
I think, if I could share a couple thoughts. So I think the report that you were looking at is from item 9 related to JSSD. And I think one of the goals, and I think we'll get to that item next, but I think one of the goals in the creation of JSSD is in a space where different programs have been operating with overlapping service populations. They've been using different vocabulary and different frameworks. And that extends to how contracts are designed and constructed, but even to how the programs themselves articulate how they're operating. So one of our goals is in that domain, which is justice adjacent and involved set of these services, but I think it can expand outwards from there as that's solidified, is to actually be engaging in a common vocabulary. So I don't know personally, maybe some folks here do, but what kind of framework or definitions, for example, the city's utilizing in its services and funding and how it's conceptualizing that. And even across the county organization.
But shouldn't we be guiding that? Because we are.
We should, but we haven't articulated in, we haven't articulated one kind of unified set of frameworks before. So what you're going to hear in item 9 next is the beginnings of an articulation of that for the new JSSD, working in partnership with Public Health and DESJ around exactly that and adopting that broader, more unified framework, which actually originates out of the public health domain, and how they describe that level of work. So it's really a public health originated framework around that that we're now trying to expand so that at least as a county organization, we're better adopting that.
And we can talk further about that because that's an interesting point. It's a jumping off point. And then in the meantime, what do we do with the work that we are currently is unfolding before us? And then how will we pivot? And so that'll be a question for future as we get through this next framework for item 9, to ask how are we going to transition our own selves, right, into this framework that we are presenting, and more than just using the same language, is using the same strategies and approaches to the work that we're doing with our families. So I thank you so much for your patience, Heidi. I appreciate the information. And maybe next time what we could do, and I don't know what you think, Co-Chair, is instead of a verbal, maybe we could have an actual report before us that it's written. A written report versus a verbal report.
And I think we're coming back with a written report, so we can bring in the chart. And I think
I just mean on an ongoing basis.
Oh, written.
Instead of, because this is the point where you're going to have a lot of data collection, and
I think that's a prudent approach, because we're going to have the blueprint. We're going to have the big report out in October, and I feel like that's a good inflection point to start having written reports for the updates. Am I following along, Heidi?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And we definitely will be bringing a written report for October. Absolutely, because that's our annual presentation. Absolutely.
And then moving forward, I think what we're asking for is like moving forward, instead of the verbal presentations, we'll have like a report as we have more data made available to us.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
We get data on a quarterly basis, so I don't know, we've been meeting every other month, that sometimes I don't have updated data, so I don't know if you want to do it right after we get the quarterlies, or,
So it'll be a quarterly report to the committee.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
perfect, perfect,
I know there's many partners at the table, so we want to make sure we're following that calendar, but also receiving timely information, so I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Great.
and maybe at some point, bring in those partners so that we can.
Yeah,
we
they'll
can
all
have
be
those
here on
kinds of
October 20th. Very
conversations.
exciting.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Heidi, and I think we're moving in the right direction because one item could have had a wonderful overlay with this item, and we could have been talking about one and the same, except we weren't, or at least I wasn't. But I think it helps us and guide us to the next item. So with that, I think we already checked on public comment, correct, Camille? All right, let's
Make
do
a
this.
motion to receive report?
And I'll do the second.
Vice Chairperson Young?
Yes.
And Chairperson Arenas?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. All right. Where are you? Item number 9. Okay, this is Justice Services and Support Department implementation update. You've heard a little bit about it in the previous item. Welcome, welcome. As you settle in, thank you for being so patient. I know we are going a little bit over what we normally do, but it's these conversations are always so important.
Thank you, Chairperson. Casey Halkin, Deputy County Executive, and I'll let my co-presenters introduce themselves.
Good afternoon. Angelica Diaz, Director of the Healthy Communities Branch with Public Health Department.
Good afternoon. Ana Lilia Garcia, Chief Equity Officer and the Director for the Division of Equity and Social Justice.
We are very happy to be here today to talk with all of you about the Justice Services and Support Department and our implementation update. Ana Lilia and I think, have so many comments about the last discussion and points we would love to add, so we will do that. But in the interest of time, I wanted to offer to skip the PowerPoint presentation and maybe go to comments and questions, if that would be preferable.
That would be preferable. I think
I'm good with that.
co-chair is
Yeah,
nodding
definitely.
yes in agreement. Thank you.
Fantastic. So one thing I will say before we move into questions with the conversation, you may have seen Dr. Garcia and I walking back and forth and chatting with each other. And one important step in the Justice Services and Support Department is our community engagement. And our community, for purposes of this work, is not just our partner agencies, it's not just our CBOs, it is also our county departments. So to your point, Supervisor Arenas, about a shared language, shared values, shared metrics, as we engage in our community stakeholder groups, we will be meeting with many departments represented here today and across the organization to begin to have holistic conversations about the Community Violence Strategic Plan, those tiers of prevention, what they all mean to the county at writ large, and how we implement that Community Violence Strategic Plan in all of our prevention and intervention work. So I really appreciate that conversation starting today, because many of the departments here will be receiving invitations from all of us to engage, and I just wanted to make sure to lift that up. One other item is we are meeting with the City of San Jose with their Parks and Rec to talk about their shared definition of this work, their shared efforts, looking really to, as they're facing challenges with their fiscal landscape as we are, looking to maximize the dollars that we have to ensure that we are not duplicating services, that we are not overlapping, and that we're really remaining strong partners in this work so that we can maximize every service, every CBO dollar we have to continue. So I just wanted to start off with those brief comments given the prior conversation, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. We're going to check to see for public comment.
There are no requests to speak.
Thank you. All right. Co-chair?
I have no questions. Thank you for this great report. And I just want to say thank you, Casey. Congratulations on the official launch of JSSD last month. And I look forward to hearing more about your progress in September.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you.
I almost feel like we need a study session on your department, on this brand new spanking department.
And I will need more coffee, Supervisor, but yes, we can definitely do that.
It would be wonderful to see how everything ties in together and ultimately what you're all thinking about, and how this one, how we should apply some of the concepts that you're leading with the rest of the work that we're doing, right? So that we can be cohesive. I won't ask, we had a little bit of a conversation already about the community violence prevention strategic plan. And so if you have any thoughts, please let me know.
Well, I will say we're returning to the board on September 15th to talk about the implementation of that strategic plan, which will include a lot of updates from several of us sitting here, the work that JSSD is doing with public health, also the community engagement framework. We'll have more information about that. So we are coming to the board in just a few weeks with some really meaningful updates. What I will also share is that I've started to have informal conversations with many of our community partners. I met this morning with the Real Coalition. I've met with the county-wide faith-based collaborative. I've been in South County many times to meet with agencies and partners, really trying to get across the county as much as we can to really start talking in deep partnership. And we're also utilizing the advisory boards that we have within JSSD. So we have a community advisory board with reentry. We also have a youth advisory council through NSU. So really trying to get the voices of youth, the voices of those with lived experience to really inform this work. I will certainly see if Dr. Garcia or Angelica want to lean in with any more comments, but it has been a deep privilege in the last several months to work with these outstanding women and the departments that they represent. I'm deeply proud of, I think, what we're doing here and the work that we are leading towards to really unify around the strategic plan. And my team is not here. They were here earlier. Some of them are here, but I think they're listening in. I also really want to say a deep thank you to the county staff. There was a lot of transition in May and June and July. People had to put their faith in all of us that we had a vision. And it's scary for county employees to encounter change. And they have been robust and resilient and thoughtful and so creative. So I just really want to give a shout out to the JSSD team for how amazing they are, and to our new violence prevention manager, Charmaine Moran, who's outstanding, and just very excited to do this work. So I don't know if you have comments you'd like to add to the strategic work that we're doing.
I'll just take a moment to echo the gratitude. It's been quite rewarding to work across the departments, especially for public health department, and being able to integrate primary prevention across the continuum. It's really about integrating that throughout the continuum and secondary and tertiary prevention, but more importantly is working together to establish broad community engagement support, ensuring that we increase the diversification of those that are included in our efforts, that we're working in partnership to guide the overall plan that includes the public health component piece. And then most recently is being able to launch a second version of our mapping activity that will look across the county to catalog the services in primary, secondary, and tertiary prevention with the focus on primary prevention, so that we can understand the services and gaps and how we could use that to inform decision-making. Thank you.
I would like to add, well, first express gratitude for foreshadowing the conversation on primary, secondary, and tertiary prevention. I really appreciate the normalizing we are doing on establishing shared language. I have to say what I've observed this afternoon is a beautiful masterclass from our CEO and our board members in terms of the language that we are using, differentiating equity and equality, the importance of these frameworks, but most importantly to have a shared understanding of what is primary prevention? What are those actions that prevent violence in the first place from occurring? What is that secondary prevention? What are those actions that occur after violence has been present? And then more of the tertiary downstream, which is I think what you were alluding to, Supervisor, actions that focus on addressing the long-term impacts and implications, and this idea of moving upstream, which is really focusing on those root causes and drivers of what is happening in our neighborhoods, what is happening in our communities that is having an impact on our families that are rooted in historical legacy of disinvestment and racism, which can get really complex and conceptual. But frankly, it is about communities. It is about what communities have and don't have, and how then that impacts their opportunity, how that impacts what they have access to, and how that impacts behavior, and how that impacts conditions, and how that impacts ultimately what happens to our families, what happens to our kiddos. So I really appreciate the thoughtful questioning that was happening. And I want to say that as DESJ, we're really excited to be partnering. On the community engagement front, DESJ is standardizing a practice of what is community engagement. We have our community engagement manager here, Lidia Doniz, who started with us 4 months ago. Not new to this work, not new to East San Jose, and we are going to be highlighting our first countywide community engagement framework, a formal framework for our county to adopt. So our departments, our community partners, our board, our administration, frankly, that all of us have shared language on what community engagement is and what it looks like, a guide for our departments and a guide for each other. So there's clarity on why am I engaging you? What is your role in that engagement, and what can I expect from you, each other, in that engagement process? So we are really excited to be working together and to highlight that community engagement framework in September. More broadly, working with our departments on that shared language of that framework, and then working really closely, of course, with our community partners and communities most impacted by the issues that we all here care about deeply.
Well, now that you gave me a little bit of a preview on the prevention, and the community engagement plan, I do think that you probably have already done this, and you're probably going to tell me in September that you've met with so many stakeholders, and they told you that this is the way that they want to be engaged, and this is probably the foundation from where you're obviously probably some of the research that public health has already established, and along with stakeholders, this is where where we've landed.
This is something we've been working on for quite some time. We actually had an opportunity to work in deep partnership with the Rio Coalition, have also had conversations with our county executive, Mr. James Williams, have had conversations with departments across the county. So it is a framework that we have also looked at national best practice, have looked at local best practice, but most importantly, have really examined and had honest conversation about what a community engagement framework looks like in local government and being able to distinguish that.
Awesome. You know, some of the work that we did when we were in council for our outreach folks who are focused more on engaging our community, there's different ways and there's different strategies that you use in order to engage with somebody, either to inform them, either to motivate them, right, or either for them to participate or to advocate. I mean, there's just so many different ways that you can, and strategies that you can use to do that. I'm really grateful that we are standardizing that, because I think maybe it's not common sense for some folks, and if they haven't worked with community before, but they want to. And then we also have a level of expectation from our partners and those that we are funding, that we're all not only just using the same verbiage, but we're using the same strategies and knowledge to engage with our community and to work with our community. And so these are fundamental. And I'm really grateful to see this, because I think it's part of how we are going to have systems change and a whole system of care and a continuum of care that will extend from all the departments. And so I think it is being born out of your department, but it's not exclusive to yours, and it's not just what you do, right? It's what we all are going to do soon enough. And so I really appreciate that. That kind of standardization, I think, will allow us to then turn to our funders and say, we have evidence-based best practices. We're engaging at this quality level with our families. And then second, we are telling our community, we honor how you'd like to be engaged, also the best practices that we have learned from, but I want to make sure that you get the feedback from the community, because there's no way that we have a community engagement plan without engaging our community. It just would be the irony of it. Yeah. anyways, so I'd love to get to know more of those folks that you've been building into the system by having conversations, and then if there's any formalized engagement plan for our community, I'd love to learn about that, because I think then you can actually carry out what you are you can practice what you're actually going to ask folks to carry out on our behalf. And you'll put it to the test to see, does this actually work, right? All right, I think, for me that is it. I look forward to this September 15th, and if you have, and we can talk about it offline. I do want us to start thinking about our county as a whole system of care versus one department and the other department, and maybe we shouldn't even call you a department. I don't know. Well,
Feel like a department, but I understand your point.
that what you're doing is so expansive, right? And this work that is going to it's foundational for many of our other departments, and then for the new folks who are coming in, and as people retire and take that institutional knowledge with them, that this good information stays with us. The practices that we learned over time, that nothing gets lost in any shift changes from within. And I'm really excited about the new staff that you have. I see them in the audience, and super excited to see how this all unfolds, and really happy to see how this works for our Latino community, as they are the ones that are overrepresented in our juvenile justice system, in our carceral system, and unfortunately in our child welfare system. And so I will lean on you to create some of that foundational strategies for how we create systems change. And I think that's what you're actually doing here, is creating systems change. So I'm really proud of that. All right, no further questions and any additional comments?
No, Supervisor, thank you.
Okay, awesome. All right.
Motion to receive report.
And I'll second that.
Vice Chairperson Young
Yes.
and Chairperson Arenas.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Wonderful. All right, so then, thank you so much, and thank you for your patience. I know it's been a little bit, a minute, but it's been really great conversations. All right, the last thing that we will do is hear from our folks. No item, I think we still have item, I'm sorry, excuse me for 1 second. Do we have item 10? No, item 10 is on consent. So yes, we will go to our key folks here to hear on the dais about any reports.
Thank you, Chairperson Arenas. Daniel Little, Social Services. A couple things. Debs hosted their annual summer career fair this Wednesday, and they had 30 employer organizations and 11 different community resources. 286 job seekers showed up, and of those 286, 20 of them already have interviews scheduled. And then on Monday, the 14th, in Chambers, we'll be celebrating this year's CalWorks participants who have shown outstanding perseverance and commitment to creating brighter futures for themselves and their families. And then on 9/18, from 9 to 3 at 353 West Julia, and our Veteran Services is presenting our Breaking the Stigma to offer mental health care. So there's going to be free lunch, walk-in consultations with mental health providers, and then our Veteran Service reps will be there as well. And then finally, I'll point to something that our DOS Director Vanessa Milano passed out, which is our Senior Safari. So we have 2 more opportunities for this.
It's a magnet.
What are the 2 dates? September 24th and October 22nd. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you so much. Anybody on this side? I'm not going to forget you, Mariel. Okay, wonderful. Well, that sums up our committee here, and I believe our next one will be September 18th at 12:30. So I look forward to seeing everyone then, and we're adjourned.